welcome everyone. Today is Saturday. It's July 23rd. I'm Frosty, and this is MogTalk. If you're new to the show, MogTalk is a podcast where the Final Fantasy XIV community comes together and discusses anything from Chocobo Racing to Savage Raiding. Today, we will be discussing the most recently released content, Deep Dungeon, Palace of the Dead. Ooh. And to speak on this topic, we have two wonderful guests returning with us who you may be familiar with by now. First off, let me welcome back Balana Rahl, an amazing player who's been on many of our higher-end rating shows so far. How much time have you put into Deep Dungeon here, Balana?
Deep Dungeon? About 10 hours so far total. Good amount.
That's like a raid day for you.
Yeah, during World Prog times, yeah, it's like one day. But I've been a little bit busy this week. I haven't put as much time in as I would like to. I've done like 4 hours solo and probably like 5 or so in match parties.
Nice. How many times? So you've completed at least once, though, right? Like all the way through.
I completed it once, and then just started doing my solo runs, trying to get my solo album going. You know.
Oh, nice, man. It's hard to break off from the group.
I know, right?
Yeah. So, just real quick, early opinion, no real big details on it. What do you think about Deep Dungeon?
Deep Dungeon, all right, let's just give it a number then. I give it 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10. Okay, fair enough. All right, and next we have with us yet again a longtime guest, one of our few, or one of the few people who have actually completed Deep Dungeon, I think, so far as a paladin. The only person I've actually seen report it. Yeah, solo as a paladin. ShamanArkk, how are you doing, man? How much time have you put into Deep Dungeon?
I've put in about 15 hours now. And again, also, that's a lot of time for a week, but I wanted to put in a lot more also. But I'm balancing it with raid and other stuff in real life, too. Yeah. I will be playing it a lot more.
I mean, it's been less than a week. It's been 4 days, I think, right?
Yeah.
It's been like half a week.
I guess so, yeah. I guess I still played a lot.
That's a lot of time, man. I think I've put in about at least 7 hours or so, but that's both group content the entire time. So, Arkk, your early, like if you had to do a rating, what's your early opinion so far?
I'll give it an 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10. So this is pretty good for what I was expecting to hear, to be honest with you. Going through the content, this again, I have to remind myself, this is mid-patch content. This isn't like a dedicated patch. Although it was a very hyped thing, I'm going to probably go somewhere in the realm of 5 out of 10.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's not a huge fan, I guess.
I mean, I'm not someone that
giving us
hates.
balance.
Yeah. All right, hold on. I'm being told by my team here, my behind the scene team, that my mic is a little bit too loud. So I turned it down just a little bit here, guys. Maybe that's a little bit better. If I'm still screaming at you, I'm sorry. I'll work on turning it down a little bit more here too. All right. So, today, I wanted to kind of dedicate this entire episode solely towards the heavily hyped new content that Square Enix has given us. That, of course, again, being Deep Dungeon. It's been pretty much all over Reddit. It's been causing load issues, especially in the zone. What's the zone again that it's called? Is it East Shroud?
Quarry Mill is South Shroud.
South Shroud. Okay, South Shroud is where it's at. Lots of loading issues when you try to go in there. It took me a while to actually find the NPC at first. And because, I mean, yeah, you have to go there to enter the dungeon, right? Yeah?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not. All right. Good. All right. And so this has been the topic on everyone's minds this week. Everyone has an opinion, some manners, whether it's good, great, whatever. Everyone's talking about it in some way. It might be best if we start going through some of the basics before we start getting into more of the advanced parts of the content, just because some people here might actually have not spent 5, 10, 15 hours in the content so far. So we'll knock that out real quick, then we'll start diving into it a little bit deeper. First, for those who are kind of unfamiliar with it, I'll start with you, Arkk. Could you give us just a simple explanation of what Deep Dungeon is?
To try and summarize it as quick as I can, it's kind of like arcade mode Final Fantasy XIV. Like, you start at level 1. Basically, when you start a game, you start from scratch. If you fail, you have to start a set of floors over again. There are like random items, random floors, random mob spawns, random traps and stuff like that you kind of have to progress through. Again, not trying to go into too much detail here, but yeah, it's that's the best way to describe it.
That's a really good description. Arcade mode, Final Fantasy 14.
That's what it is. Yeah, you have a favorite class and want to level it again and have some experience of leveling it again. This is it.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's
it's
really...
just they're gonna put it in eventually, but they're just missing the leaderboard, and then it's arcade mode for sure.
Yeah, were they going to put a leaderboard in?
They are going to, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Balana, is that kind of how you would describe it too?
Close. I'd say instead of arcade mode, it's a roguelike minigame inside Final Fantasy. It's got a lot of like roguelike elements. You've got the random factors. You've got technically kind of permadeath. When your whole team wipes, you have to start over from like a checkpoint. So it's got the checkpoints, which kind of throws it off a little bit of the roguelike comparison, but you do have like the roguelike kind of new things like in Rogue Legacy or like that, where you carry over some of your progression even between sessions, even between different classes. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. It's got a lot of good things going for it. It's got a few things that I nitpick about, but they did a pretty good job with it.
Yeah, no, and it's actually kind of interesting that you're talking about it now. I kind of think it's almost like this should have been like a gold saucer thing, like a battle arena kind of thing, right?
They can still do battle arena, but yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what it's. I didn't think about that before, but that's really kind of where it's going. So, all right, well, kudos on that. Yeah. I had no even thoughts of calling it arcade mode or rogue mode.
Well, think of it this way: they could put this in an arcade and just have this, right? Mm-hmm. It would work, right?
Yeah,
to a certain extent, yeah. Except for the Aether Pole and Aether Armor that you carry over, but you could have something similar to
yeah.
All right. Except for if you put it in arcade mode, I think everybody who goes up to play the arcade version of it would be like, "What the hell is all these different skills?" And
sure enough,
you would have no time to learn any of it. But yeah, no, it'd be pretty cool.
It's not quite that, but it's yeah.
Balana, I forgot. Did you play 11 a lot? Or
no, I never touched 11.
Okay, so you're in the club with me with people who barely touched 11. All right,
yeah,
Arkk though, on the other hand, you've played a good bit of 11, right?
Yep.
All right, so there's a version of this in 11. How does it kind of compare?
It's very, very different. It's not. I would hardly compare them. Final Fantasy 11 had a raid that essentially had random floors where you could get very random loot, and it was near endless. Were different. It was basically raid content. It was what it was in Final Fantasy 11. Mm-hmm. This is pretty separate. This is pretty different, as well as the systems involved with it are quite different. But so it probably won't be enjoyed the same way because again, that was raid content. That was endgame content. This is like a side set of content that you do kind of for fun, to cap, to get glamour items, to get battle materia, stuff like that. So, but pretty different. Though there are, speaking of 11, I did notice some stuff that they kind of put in that's kind of I don't know if there's more. I don't know if there was too much more of this, but the fact that the enemies are very dangerous in themselves. Some of them are particularly more dangerous, and you're like, oh, I hate this enemy so much. It's kind of got that feeling of Final Fantasy 11. You'd go and explore somewhere, and you'd see a mob, and it's like, oh my god, not this enemy. The bees, the slimes, and stuff like that. It's like, I really want to avoid this enemy. I don't want this, or mimics too.
Yeah.
There's another kind of thing. I just noticed it this today when I was doing some machinist stuff. As the solo machinist attempts, the goblins have a chance to drop the bomb on themselves and explode, which is from Final Fantasy 11.
Really?
Actually, yeah, it's the first time I saw goblins in this game do that, and it made me laugh so much because in Final Fantasy 11 you would farm goblins for experience points, and they had a chance to kill themselves, and it was just everyone loved it when they killed themselves because you get so much experience points. And it's just funny because they have the exact same animation of dropping the bomb and taking damage from it, and yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a little bit from Final Fantasy 11 there on that.
All right, so you have to look for it. It's not like a straight port from it. It's completely different.
Definitely not. No. It's maybe inspired a little bit, but it's definitely. I did say it's definitely more inspired from games like Rogue Legacy and stuff like that, and just kind of arcade kind of aspects and stuff. Yeah.
All right. So going into it, the minimum requirements are really not that high. I think you need level 17 in Copper Bell Mines, right? And those are your requirements?
Level 17 and main story up to Copper Bell Mines completed.
Okay. Is this too low? I mean, should this content really be released to someone who's leveling up and this is the first time entering the game and they get to level 17? They're like, hey, let's go into Deep Dungeon. Is this content they should actually be touching?
That's actually, I think, is one of the big strengths of the Deep Dungeon, and one of the reasons why I rated it so highly is that it's a really good way for new players to see what the end game in the game is going to be like, what a class is going to be at 60.
Yep.
Also a good way for more veteran players, if they haven't played a class, they want to see, oh, what's this class like? You jump in the Deep Dungeon, you get to level 60 in like a couple hours, and they're like, oh, hey, this is how this class plays. Maybe I like this class. Maybe I want to try it. Like, it's a really good way to get a good sampling of a class without having to go out and grind it up in the regular game.
Okay. Go ahead.
It's also a good way to, for me, who's like, we're actually a lot of us are veteran players. The leveling process has gotten very repetitive for me at this point. I don't enjoy leveling as much as I used to for newer classes as they come out and stuff like that, especially at the low levels. Even leveling at alt is kind of like not too much fun for me anymore. But this is a good alternative to that. Like this is like something to break it up a bit. It's like, oh, this range of levels or this dungeon, I hate doing this dungeon or farming this dungeon. I'll just do Deep Dungeon instead, and then I get some of my 60 skills while I'm like leveling a level 30 and stuff like that, which is nice. It's not. I don't know how efficient it is for leveling. It seems pretty decent, but
All right.
yeah,
Well,
if you're having more fun, anything seems faster, right? So
yeah. If you're having a good time, it always passes quickly. Yeah, no. So the thing that I would be most concerned about is that when you're leveling this fast, how do you get a real grasp of what you're supposed to do on your job? And when you're leveling, again, at 17, you have pretty much no stone, so you can't get into the advanced job or whatever. How does that usually work out? Can a new player actually learn anything from this?
I haven't gone in without a job stone, but I'm assuming you don't get job actions without it.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. And so imagine being a level 17, no job stone, and no understanding of other jobs or anything else. You're just playing your Marauder and just kind of leveling up. How does that whole system how does that feel for you as a new player?
don't go in alone, that's for sure.
Yeah. I think it'd be really difficult if you're either solo queuing or going in alone, or you're just going up with random people. I think it'd be really good for kind of like a mentor system. Basically, if you're like, oh, hey, you want to learn how to play ninja, let me go in there with you. Or you want to learn how to play summoner, like, okay, I'll come in there and I'll say, hey, here's what you do, here's what your abilities are. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're just kind of throwing yourself in there, I think it's good and it's bad for new players. It's good that they get a taste of what it's going to be like at higher levels, because one of the bigger turnoffs to people who are playing first picking it up, they're like, oh, this game's super slow. There's not a whole lot of abilities. I don't really like it. You can throw them into this and be like, hey, here's what a taste of the end game's going to be like.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Okay, so someone would kind of have to be with you going through that process.
Yeah, like doing matchmaking wouldn't be a bad experience. Like maybe people will be a little bit trolly. Maybe it'd be like kind of going through like a 4-man, right? They might be a little bit trolly. They might make the experience not too fun, but it could go the opposite way too. And again, you get to experience like more your skills a little bit faster and see if you like the class or what it's like later. It'll be pretty intimidating, of course. But I don't think the people who would be intimidated by that type of content are the ones who are going to seek it out and try and do it. So this is for the people who actually do want to see what it like, to speed stuff up a bit, speed up the feeling, or try stuff out, and see what the higher levels are like, right? But yeah, really matchmaking, no one really has anything to complain about because like people are soloing it, right?
Right.
Definitely, you only need a couple people doing anything in that dungeon when you have a bunch of people, and it's very, very casual content with 4 men.
Okay.
Yeah, it's also not super difficult, especially if you're running with the full group. I mean, it's soloable by I'm going to say almost any class.
Yes, I would say any class. I would say any class for sure.
So even if you're not super optimized on the class you're going in there, you can just kind of go in there, mash buttons, and get through with the 4-man party most of the time.
Yeah. Which I have seen. Yeah, but I had a conjure in our group, so when I was one of the ones matchmaking. But it's interesting matchmaking because like. You go in, twice I went in, I got all DPS. And, yes, like, the bosses are pretty sketchy.
Oh, well, my first time clearing it, I got only DPS for my random queues. I never got a healer or anything. And, for the bosses...
Piece of cake.
I was doing a summoner, so for the bosses, I just threw Titan at it, and he's
that's good.
kind of
OP. Good.
So.
I kept getting ninjas and machinists. But this is before machinists actually have hypercharge, so I didn't really enjoy it as much as I could.
Oh, okay.
So I was like a ninja, and it's like, oh, well, here's another ninja, and how about 2 more machinists on top of that? There you go.
And I'm starting to think about this, and this is something that is actually kind of an interesting point. When you're leveling up as level 17, you're still getting your armor and everything else, your weapon bonus, and when you hit level 60, you have a 235 weapon ready to go for you. Right? Mm-hmm. And so you pretty much have a weapon.
That's actually a really good point. That's a really good point. I never thought of that. Like, you could level up and work towards a 235 weapon. Yeah, you're totally right. That's interesting, actually.
I'm kind of curious of how efficient the EXP gain from doing it is, too. I mean,
I think
it really
it's slower.
It's slower?
It's definitely probably on the slower side. I haven't tried actually leveling through it, but I can. Do we have a list? No, they don't tell us how much XP you
I did
get.
a couple on my warrior, and I was level 53. And the first floor gave me 215 experience points, with the armory bonus giving me 50% more. And the next floor gave me like around 300k also. So like one full clear would be probably close to gaining a level. So it is probably slower. I don't know what it's like at low levels though. Maybe it gives a crap ton of because actually one full clear being about 2 to 3 hours at level 53. That's actually not too bad, to be honest, to get a level from that way.
I did see somebody zone out and get 3 levels. They went from like level 6 to level like 10.
9? Or 10?
9. Yeah, 9. Yeah, 9. It was like, so it hits level 7, hits level 8, hits level 9. It's like, oh.
That might have been from one floor. Yeah, so maybe the low levels are pretty decent. I do plan to level my warrior off of this content. And maybe at classes too. Probably Dragoon is another one.
All right. Yeah, I'm probably going to spend some time doing it too, because I'm building up an alt myself, and I figured, it just hit level 17, and it's at the quest for Copper Bell Mine, so I might as well give it a try and see how that works out.
You know what else is awesome about the fact that the requirements are so low? Create an alt in another server and play with your friends, right? My alts, like on Exodus, is actually able to do this right now. Yeah. It's fair enough. I probably should have locked Ninja first, because I don't know if I want to do it as a rogue.
Yeah. No, I have an alt on the Aether data center now. So I'm trying to build that up, and then I have my primal character, so I can kind of, when crossover stuff comes out, I have access to both data centers.
Yeah,
I'm good to go.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. All right, so moving past that, again, it's pretty good for old players to kind of go back and have something refreshing to do, I guess, and get a weapon out of it and get mounts and all the other stuff. So it's kind of obvious what you get out of it as a level 60, right?
Yeah.
It's just kind of fun side content.
Yeah, when we're talking about why would people do this? The first experience is really fun on their own. Why would people keep doing this? I think it's really good content to level or cap off of, right? And like we said, why you're getting a lot out of doing it when you're leveling off of it, or even when you're capping off of it too. Or it's just capping, it's just an alternative capping. If you enjoy doing this content, you cap off of whatever content you enjoy the most, or you should anyways.
As long as you don't wipe, right? And then it becomes crap. You lose everything that you worked for then for that entire turn, right?
Yeah. But when you go in with a fixed party or matchmaking, it really doesn't take that long to clear the whole thing. Yeah, it's like I said, like an hour and a half to 2 hours for a fixed group. That's probably not even going for the fastest possible clear time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And real quick, as a reminder to everyone, I forgot to mention this, but again, if you guys have any kind of questions or anything for the show, make sure you guys ask too. Kerr is there collecting all the questions that you may have, and we'll answer those a little bit later in the show. Again, we have 2 really experienced players who've been going through Deep Dungeon, and one casual, kind of know things guy over here that could answer questions for you. But yeah, so going into this content again, the saving, you go through, and if you hit 39 and you die, then you're back to 30, right? Is this too punishing, or is this like, yeah, sure, why not? Why not give it that small challenge?
So for the people who might not know yet, basically every 10 floors you encounter a boss, and after you beat the boss, it saves your progress. If you die before getting to that save point, you start way back at the beginning, or you start back at the previous save point. I think it's the least forgiving thing in Final Fantasy they've ever put in, but I think that tension actually gives it a bit of an edge and makes it more exciting than killing trash mobs.
Absolutely right. And the fact that it's not like you repeat your journey again. It's still RNG. Different floors, different enemy setups, different
music.
Different music too. Yes. I like the RNG music. It was a good touch. I wish they didn't pick some tracks. They don't really fit too well, but some of the ones they did pick are amazing.
There's some of the tracks you just don't want to hear. Like we were doing it and with one of our friends, and every time Hullbreaker came on, he was just like, I can't stand this. I don't want to do this anymore.
Why did you put that in there? Like, put all the creepy songs in only, and it is mostly creepy songs, to be honest, but there are some that are just out of it. And also the PvP, waiting for a PvP match music to start, that's like the worst one. It's just like you're so like antsy. It's like, when's this game gonna start?
Yeah. All right, Balana, I see a link there. What are we linking?
Oh, I just linked it's a list of every track that can come up in there.
Oh, cool.
And where it's from originally.
Yeah, I like the 1.0 music they put in. There's three since we're talking about it now, there are three 1.0 musics they put in. One is the original Black Shroud music for when 1.0 first came out, which I always call the creepy circus music. If you listen to it, you'll know what I mean. And then there's the original Mordana music, which is just the most suspenseful, epic song ever. Like something's just about to come out and eat you alive. And then there's just another one from 1.0 that used to play in the in some of the cutscenes. So they're all really good tracks, really, really good. I'm glad they got a chance to use it again.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I turned on my music for it, except for when Hullbreaker comes on. You're like, all right, back to Pandora, flip it on and turn music off. But then I might miss the next track or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But all right, so save in progress is not very forgiving, but that again adds to the element of the cons and it makes it more enjoyable for some people who actually want to have something a little bit more exciting in the game, right? Yeah. So that's good. The next part is, I guess, for those people who do get reset, is resetting no. I can't go into it anymore. We're good. I was just going to say, is resetting the weapons too punishing too? Because people will go in there for the weapons, right? If they hit 50, I guess they would want to get right out right afterwards, right?
I can actually give you an awesome example of that. When I was doing the Soli Pally run, on the final floor, I got a chest that gave me +3, and then another chest that gave me +2, and I actually capped my weapon. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to absolutely clear this time. And I couldn't have possibly gotten more mimics. Then every single chest was a mimic, and it absolutely destroyed me. I even had to fight the final boss with Pox on and do everything with Pox on. My actual clear of it was at 35 minutes. I had 35 minutes remaining, and I pretty much ran out of time on the other one. I couldn't actually keep myself alive due to Pox during the boss fight because I didn't even have any Pomenders to use. I had nothing because they were all mimics.
Oh Jesus!
Yeah, it can happen. Yeah, it throws away your progress for those weapons, and they're going to fix that because it is a little too punishing because it's so hard to get the upgrades. And there has been a post made where they're going to make it so the final boss gives you guaranteed upgrades to your weapon and armor, and the chests are more likely to give it to you at lower levels so that it's a lot easier to farm it. So yeah, it is probably a little bit too punishing. Even Square Enix agrees, and they're quickly fixing it, which is nice.
Yeah.
But I do like how it throws it away. I do like how you have to, that again, like I said, I have +30 weapon. Oh man, the suspense! I have to get this clear. I have to get it. It's so I really want to make sure I finish this dungeon now because I got some really good RNG on and some good rewards. So it's kind of cool. I like that suspense. It makes the content a little bit more fun.
Because those people are, dropping out after the 39th floor, right? They're like, oh, well, there's no chest for me. I'm not going to go through this boss. I'm just going to
usually the 49th floor. Yeah, right before the final boss, because that's when you're people are really close to getting the glamour item. They want to be at the highest floor to get those upgrades. And yeah, I definitely in matchmaking have had people complain that they just got really bad RNG and then try to vote abandon. And this is my first time trying to clear it, or I just want the lore. I just want the pot shard. And I'm I'll just I'm going to farm this stuff another time. I don't care about the glamour. If they try to vote abandon, it's really annoying if that goes through because you lose all your progress. Or even worse, this is probably the worst case scenario. Ignore my case, but say you got really good RNG. You got the best RNG for your weapons and armors, but the 3 other people didn't, and then they vote abandon. You lose all of that, right? That's terrible. Yeah. And one of the reasons that's probably one of the biggest cons to matchmaking right now, and hopefully the fixes they're putting in will stop that from happening.
It'll definitely incentivize against that.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about how weapons actually get upgraded. Because, it seems kind of weird, because sometimes you open a chest and it's no, we're not going to give you any kind of upgrade. What's the rules and requirements for getting those upgrades? How does that all happen?
It's pretty unknown, but it's just plain out RNG, and at the higher floors, if your weapon level is really low, the lower floors are more likely to give it to you, and if it's really high, they're less likely to, or almost not going to. And you just need to get them from higher floors, and then there's just a chance you won't get anything anyways, no matter what. Yeah.
I've heard a few different theories getting thrown around. One of them that got some traction was that it's based off your character level as you level up in there. When you open the chest, if you're level 1, you're not going to get a really high upgrade. Somebody had a formula that actually I proved wrong by accident a little bit later. It's oh, I got that. They were saying it's oh, you can only upgrade to your level divided by 2 plus 1.
They just made up that formula. All right, this might
work.
They're
it seems to be how it works. And, I mean, I've seen it kind of check out sometimes, but nothing's really been completely figured out yet.
I mean, that's how,
as far as I know.
That's very close to how the syncing works for weapons. So they're just basically saying you can't get it under sync, but people have said that you can get upgrades while synced. So
yeah,
I guess that +1 is the thing that they're talking about, maybe. But I don't know. I actually haven't gotten an upgrade while synced before.
No.
But and that's how the syncing works for the record. Actually, should we talk about what what the armor and Aetherpool armor actually means? Like, to kind of put in perspective, it's basically, if you think of it like your gear, right? So your gear 1 is like if you have +1 Aetherpool armor, it's like you're wearing eye level 2 gear. And if you have like +10 weapon, it's like you're wearing you have an eye level 20 weapon, and that's pretty much how it works essentially.
So like if you have 30, you have a level 60 weapon.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's synced to, it can never be more than your level divided by 2.
Huh.
So at 30 at level 30 you can only have a level 30 weapon basically, right? So we're +15.
Okay, that makes sense then. So basically, it's a little bit goofy. I don't know why they put it at 30 and they could have just put it at 60, right? Would that have made more sense if they just put it at 60?
Yeah, they just had to make the numbers like increase twice as fast. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how hard would that have been?
Would have been a little bit more easy to understand, yeah. But divided by 2 is difficult. Or multiplying by 2.
All right, well, I guess it is what it is. Arthas is over here saying that, like, apparently, of course, the JP data center doesn't have people having that issue yet where they're like, oh, well, we're out at the end of the dungeon so we can skip out of it. Of course, right?
Hey, and in the defense of, like, North American servers, 2 people tried to vote abandon in the group I was in, and then they couldn't pass it. And then they left, or they wanted me to kick them, so I kicked them for harassment. It was nice and fun. Then 2 people actually joined in progress, which I have no clue how you join in progress, to be honest. Someone's got to explain that to me. But 2 people joined in progress at the final boss, so they basically get nothing out of it, right? They don't get any Aetherpool upgrades.
Well, not the upgrades, but they get a quick lore. Like, the lore is just like, done,
lore, hot shards, and stuff. So yeah, hopefully they didn't mind, and they're just like, yeah, whatever, and then they just hope to clear it on our first try. So people join in progress. Again, I don't really know how you join in progress, but...
Yeah, because you don't do it in Rayfinder. You just click on it. Maybe it just matches you up. Here, fill in these holes, right?
I figured that out. I don't know, but yeah, people can definitely join in progress. For the record, I've had that happen a couple of times. So
yeah, I'm glad they can too, because some groups they might actually have trouble with it if a couple people drop out and do in duo, right? I mean, like,
yeah,
I'm sitting at like +9 weapon and armor. I can't do the final boss with that, or I can't even do. That's hard to duo with that even. So you don't have a healer.
Now, Arkk, you put in some notes in here about bringing items with you. Is this mainly just for, like, solo queue? Like, you're like, hey, bring some potions with you?
So, solo or duo, you really kind of want to have, Echo Drops is a really common one for when you get trapped for casters. Like, it's pretty painful. Even if you're going in and you can cross-class a Cure or a Physic, Echo Drops are really good for dealing with those traps early on. Potent poison potions are very good for getting through dungeons much faster. They're very powerful at low levels, too. The other status effects, I wouldn't necessarily say you should probably bring them because potent poison potions are usually a lot better. The other ones don't last long enough. And food, you get the stat bonuses from food, and accuracy food is pretty good because if you're ever under level, which can sometimes happen, it helps because you can miss a lot.
Yeah, I was under leveled on my first attempt at solo run. I I got to level 20, floor 20. I'm like, oh, I can just go ahead and solo this, and I'm super under leveled, and I'm just trying to skip mobs and stuff, and I'm like, I gotta eat accuracy food. I'm missing all the time.
Yeah, it's the only way you can get to help deal with that problem if ever it comes up. So accuracy food can be helpful, but just the vitality and stats you get from it's handy. And then also you get a lot of potions in the dungeon, which are like you spam those potions like crazy, especially if you're not a healing class or something like that. Keep with the high quality ones. Never use a stat potion because that'll lock you out of your regular potions for like 4.5 minutes. So don't do that, because I've done that before. I'm like, oh, I can't use a vitality potion. Right, that's a really bad idea.
So
they just recently reduced the cooldown on regular potions too. So
yeah, it's 22 seconds for high quality potions. That's crazy. Like, that's your heal. That's why people can solo it.
So what? Does this feel kind of like a cheat? Should we be able to use potions and stuff outside of Deep Dungeon in the dungeon? I mean, kind of the point was that I thought at least, was that everything you did was inside that dungeon, right?
I thought it was going to be like that too, but I'm actually okay with it because they provide most of the potions themselves. So, because they kind of like give you a good amount of them, and it also makes these things much more useful because they're useless at the moment for the most part. Pretty useless. don't get much use. There's some uses for them here and there, but they don't get much use. So
Yeah. Balana, what do you think about bringing potions in there? Like, do you think that was an oversight, or is that something that
I think that was. I don't think it was an oversight. I think it was intentional, just with the way it's set up, because you don't, really need them when you're in there with a group. But when you're in there solo, you want to get, every little advantage you can. And they have all these items in the game that just been, sitting around collecting dust. Maybe they're used for like a turn-in for quests somewhere.
Right.
Yeah. But that's about it. That's all their real use is for nowadays. But now they're using the Phoenix Downs. They're using
the Phoenix Downs is the biggest one.
Experiment.
Yeah.
But they do give you the Phoenix Downs and the potions, which are the two kind of biggest things. The rest of them are just nice to have, but not super necessary.
Opponent potions are very much like a solo or duo thing, especially if you don't have too much gear. Like they're great for low levels. Like you can destroy a low a mob higher level than you really quickly with opponent poison potions. So, or it helps with a little bit on bosses.
So going through some of this too, before you enter in, like what's a good comp you could recommend? Like, is it not the standard just tank, 2 DPS, and healer?
No, you can get away with anything.
You can get away.
My first clear was just with 4 DPS.
Right. Well, what's like if you wanted to go through and have the easiest time possible and the least amount of deaths, least amount of trouble at all, and would it be just a standard setup, or would you still go more DPS, no tanks, or?
You want a healer. As long as you have a healer, you can really do anything you want.
Okay. Just that one healer.
That's true all the way down. For 4-man, 3-man, and duo, and then solo. Obviously, any class can do solo. But yeah, if you're duo, do duo with a healer. Like a scholar, summoner is really great duo comp, or summoner any healer is incredibly powerful because Titan Eggy just like put steel on Titan Eggy, and you're like, that thing is better than most tanks.
I still remember the days when I was tanking and Titan Eggy put me out of a job for like a few weeks on Rama, and I was just like, this is ridiculous. I hate it.
It was the best of times, though.
It sucked.
But the same reason why Titan Eggy could tank Ramu makes him just... I think it's the second boss, the Hydra one in there. All his attacks are cleaves, which means Titan gets his reduced damage. Like, you don't even need to heal him for that whole boss fight. You just throw him on there like, okay, small potatoes.
The fourth boss, he doesn't get hit by the big shadow flare also.
Mm-hmm.
I guess this is really good for tanks who are like, I just want a DPS. They don't care anymore, right?
They can do that, yeah. Well, again, I 4 DPS. Who do you think's tanking? One of the DPS is tanking, and of course I'm going to do it.
Right.
Because I play Final Fantasy 11, I'm like, ooh, ninja tank opportunity here.
Yeah, nice. All right, so comps really don't matter. If you're going in with a duo team, trio team, none of this matters because it can be soloed by pretty much anyone.
Yeah, well, okay, so here's where it matters. You're going in, you don't have a lot of ether pool armor or arms or whatever. Your weapon and your eye level is low basically, and you're gonna do duo anyways, which is still possible. So like solo, you need some gear up front, but duo and up you don't. It's just a little bit harder, of course. So then, yeah, you want a healer when duoing if you don't have a lot of good gear already. And then after that, you can pretty much bring anyone else. But I would say a summoner would be your best bet as DPS buddy, or you can't go wrong with a tank. And then any other DPS would probably work, but your healer is probably going to get locked into healing a lot more than actually being able to DPS. And this is talking about at low eye levels, where you're actually trying to farm some eye levels, or just checking it out, or just having some fun playing with your buddy. You don't want to deal with matchmaking.
Playing with my buddy, having a good time. All right. So that
that's
sounded a little bit more lewd than I thought it would. So sorry about that. No, so if you were going to solo it and you wanted to solo it your first time and you wanted to go on the easiest job possible, what do you think's having the easiest time soloing this content?
I'd have to guess like a healer, probably.
Yeah. Healer,
Any 3 of the healer classes would be the easiest. Probably Scholar.
I would think Scholar
I would
too.
think Scholar. Yep. So probably healers have the potential of soloing it with the lowest ether pool armor and arms, which I'm not sure what that would be. Probably somewhere around plus 20. After that, it's, and again, for tanks and healers, the biggest issue is time limit. Now tanks have the potential of doing more DPS and having more uptime on their DPS, but like it's hard to sustain themselves, and they don't. It's hard, like low levels, they don't have their sustainabilities. Especially Warrior doesn't have like barely anything, and a lot of their damage. If you don't have good gear on Warrior, a lot of their heals come from their attacks, right? It's not. It's a little bit different, right? So I haven't tried it on Warrior yet, but I imagine the early levels are really painful.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say like healers and tanks have it pretty easy. They both have different challenges, and DPS I'm very curious. I'm gonna explore more DPS, but what they have is they don't have to worry about the time limit at all. Like they just crush stuff. The problem is they just have to stay alive, and the bosses are a lot more challenging. They have to kill the boss before it kills them, but they can farm really quickly. All the DPS can. And also, just a fun fact about the dungeon, if you're thinking about like positionals, everything is omnidirectional. So, there are no positionals. Everything lands its positional. So, like, you can trick attack from the front of the mob. A monk is going to be, like, landing every positional no matter what. So, they took that into account. And that's for the bosses, too.
Yeah, they had to do that or else monks would never be able to solo it because all their stuff would do like 100 potency.
I do agree that monks probably would have some of the hardest... Now, monks would be great for the boss. Probably one of the better DPS for bosses that aren't summoner. But I do agree that monks would struggle a bit with not having a ranged ability to separate pools. I don't really know how you would manage that because that would get kind of challenging in some scenarios. You probably have to use your pomanders in a really weird way. So I'd like to see a monk solo it and see how they deal with that problem because they're the only ones who don't have a ranged ability to pull mobs out and separate them.
And when you're happy was working on that earlier.
Yeah, cool. That's awesome. Yeah, and like, but that's the thing. DPS, like I on Ninja when I was going in with like 4 people, sometimes we get separated, and even when I didn't have a lot of gear, I could destroy mobs before they kill me. Any mobs, even the hardest ones like the grave. What are those grave guys called? The ones that have the 2 coffins. They walk around. Those guys are pretty powerful.
Those guys
right?
are pretty awesome.
Was that model used anywhere else, or is that a new one?
No, there's some unique models in here, and that's
so
awesome.
Wraith and that one are the only 2 that I really noticed that stood out. Were there any other models that stood out? I'm trying to think.
I think there were, but I can't remember them right now. Was there a boss model that was new? Oh yeah, one of the boss
Ida
models
is new, right? I mean, she
and the boss before that too. Was that the Wraith model? I guess.
Yeah, I think that was the kind of the Wraith model.
It's cool too.
Yeah. Those the coffin hand things were pretty awesome. I like the Dream dreamt that up.
But this is pretty early on when I didn't have good gear, and that's why I was doing it matchmaking, and I could kill any mob very quickly. So time limit's not an issue, and the only time surviving becomes a problem is on bosses or when stuff goes wrong. You hit a lure trap when you shouldn't have hit a lure trap or something like that, because a lure trap will probably destroy you on a DPS if you don't have a rage or a way to manage it. Lust and witching. Or don't have a steal up or something like that. But yeah, that's just one of the reasons why all the classes can clear it. And I'm going to work on Machinist next right now, and it's a lot more fun than Pally. I thought Pally was a lot of fun, but Machinist is so much more fun.
Well, you can do some good kiting with Machinist too, right?
Kiting is a big deal for sure. That's the way I'm used, and that's why I would never go on a floor with Gloom on it. But because I need to be able to kite. But
I'm gonna give you a quick tip with your Machinist as well. You can tank mobs that you're not attacking with your Bishop turret.
Yeah, I was gonna experiment that with that a little bit too.
So basically, you just put the Bishop turret down, and it will attack stuff. If you don't attack them, and the Bishop turret hits them, they will attack the Bishop turret. But as soon as it dies, you just throw another Bishop turret down, right?
Yeah. I think I'm worried about Bard and Monk the most. And Monk again because they don't having a ranged attack. If you can manage that, Monk's actually probably pretty strong. And Bard because they don't have too many utility moves, but they can kite, so it's probably not too bad. But yeah, they don't have a stun. They don't have some other stuff that Machinists have too. They don't have that crazy wildfire burst that could just destroy any mob if you need to.
Yeah, I almost want to say it'd be better to go in as Archer instead of Bard, so you can cross-class cure and get some of the more of those abilities.
Archer's so strong, man, with all the cross-class stuff. Yeah.
We're gonna find out. I don't want to speculate. Well, I can basically what I'm saying is I'm speculating a lot right now, but I think there's definitely a way that every class can solo right now, and I don't know which is harder than what because people will find out strategies that might totally cheese how easy it is to solo on certain jobs. So I'm just going to be very open-minded right now. Like, for all we know, Monk is the easiest DPS to clear it on or something like
actually, that. I just checked Happy's stream, and he's on the last boss.
As Monk?
So, yeah, so right now.
And I don't know if it's harder or easier, right? Like, you need like, the experience. But it's still really cool that someone's trying it. You really just need the initiative and the patience to try it, and I'm pretty sure you could do it on anything. It's really fun, too. It's really, really fun if you're into that kind of stuff.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about how much when you're soloing it, how much does the time limit matter around the end? Like in the beginning, does it matter? Like not at all. Like you pretty much cleared all of the floors completely as a solo.
Well, it might not be a difficulty in clearing it on the earlier floors against the time, but the fact is you need to get as much experience as possible. So you do need to spend as much time on those floors. So you've got an hour to just because the mobs will respawn. A few of them will do on every floor. So if you need to spend like all that time going through and just grinding the mobs up, or else you're gonna be suffering for it later on in the solo run.
Yeah, when time's actually a factor. If you're soloing and doing it with undergeared or doing it for your first time, yeah, farmings will ease the difficulty of the other floors. So, you might be smart to use the full hour. If you're on a class that's stronger at lower levels, it might be faster to not farm on farm on the floor where you're strongest. Basically, your class is the strongest, and you're able to farm really efficiently and well. Because like farming on within the first 10 floors is like super boring. But I had to do it on my Pally. I'm pretty sure I could get away with not doing it on my Machinist though.
Okay. So you would recommend, because it's boring, not to kind of go through the first 10 floors farming?
Yes. Yeah. Maybe. It depends. As long as you don't get stuck later.
Yeah.
I think the next thing that'll come out of this is people are finding out how to solo, and it's not too bad. It's just, again, the patience, dedication kind of thing, and then and having a certain upfront set of knowledge on how everything works in the dungeon, and then people are going to start doing speed clears of it. It'll be the next thing. It's like I cleared it on all 50 floors on this class in like an hour and 20 minutes, and that means that they had to go and clear it like bare minimum level all the way through, right?
Mm-hmm.
That'll be the interesting things to see. I think that's the next step. I don't know if I'll get into that, but I'm sure people are going to start doing stuff like that.
Well, I mean, once they put the leaderboards out there, hopefully it'll be a little bit better.
Oh, yeah.
And hopefully, those leaderboards can't be cheesed as much as like other leaderboards could be, right?
They specifically said that classes will be put into their own category, which is very similar to how rifts work in Diablo 3, right? So it's like, here's the best Demon Hunter rift, and then this is how far they've gone. So like balance is based on the job that clears it on, and that's how they do the leaderboard. And then like as far as the 2-player, 3-player, and 4-player after that, they don't care about what jobs are in those groups. It's just like, here's the best 2-player clear, here's the best 3-player clear, here's the best 4-player clear, and that's probably what they'll do, something very similar to that.
Yeah, I think solo queuing this stuff is going to be where it's at for challenges and everything else.
For leaderboard stuff.
Yeah, leaderboards. I mean, groups, maybe. But it's so easily accessible going in there by yourself to practice and get better at it.
Groups competing with each other, I mean, there's still something there. It's just, I don't know, it's a lot harder to manage. And
I mean, but then again, you go to PvP, solo queue is a lot more of a thing that people actually want to go into besides team, because you have to get more people to come with you on the team, and then you have to, I guess that's a little bit different because it's team versus team, but...
well, I mean, there's some people who just can't schedule stuff with like a static of any kind, raid or PvP, or potentially if you're trying for the best leaderboards on Palace of the Dead, maybe not that also. So that's why solo queues are really good. You can do it on your own time.
All right. So I'm gonna ask Balana, because Balana, you didn't get as much in so far. I'm
not as much of an expert as Arkk is.
Ark's pretty hard. You went really hard into Palace of the Deep, so
I'm gonna keep going too.
Just gonna keep going into it. So I'm gonna ask you, Balana, what's the worst trap you think is in the entire map?
As a caster, the one that silences you, but just carry echo drops. So beyond that, I would have to say it's the most possibly devastating one is the lure trap. If you've done something like gone and pulled. Well, actually, no, landmines. Landmines or lures are the two that like always make me kind of need to change my britches. Lures can throw you off because it's going to spawn with 3 or 4 mobs.
Yeah.
And if you've done like a bigger pull at that point, and you're like kiting around a whole bunch of mobs. Oh, I stepped on a trap, and now there are even more mobs, and that's kind of run over right there. Or if you hit like an inopportune landmine, just like I think it always does like 90% of your health.
80%.
80%. Yeah.
Always
so
80% of your current health.
Can it actually kill you? Or?
No. It can't.
Okay.
It's your current health, not your total health.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah. So
that's rough.
It's still really scary every time it happens.
It sure is.
And it's a landmine, and I'm not going to die now, right?
So I mean, like kiting actually becomes a problem then, right? I mean, if you were sitting there and you were just attacking something and you weren't moving, then those traps don't become really an issue anymore.
Right.
So that might be where Warrior kind of shines a little bit, because it can pull stuff with its axe, tomahawk it, and just kind of stand in spot and not run into traps, and it doesn't really matter. That's how the class works,
Advantage
right?
of things that don't kite, yeah. Like if you're going to do a kite strategy, you really want to do it in rooms that you know there are no traps, or you've cleared out the traps.
Yeah, there's no
So
traps. Basically, you want to run side to side.
Well,
and
you'll probably pull mobs into the room that you just finished clearing, something like that. Of course, mobs can respawn in those areas, so you got to be careful. But
yeah,
if you absolutely need to kite, that's probably I do. If I didn't put a commander that like removes traps or detects traps. So,
real quick, I know Kerr said it earlier. going into this first, did you know what pomander meant? Did you know
Definitely
what the
did.
definition was for that?
I
looked
still
it up
think they're saying
before.
pomade.
MogTalk.
Yeah. I mean, like, that's just such a random word, you know? I think this is when it comes into that highlight of the people who actually write the lore, who do all the translations and everything. They're like, what's a fancy effing word I can just throw in there and just be like, make people think that no one in the world knows except for like a handful of people. And they just throw it in there.
What does it mean?
Chris said
I'm
it
still not
earlier.
aware.
I would have to look it up again. There was a kind of a long definition there.
It's just like something that it's like a ball of like nice smelling stuff that you put
Yeah,
in, like,
like
your
nice
closet.
smelling stuff. All right.
You put in your closet so your clothes smell good, something like that. So it's just a
Pomander.
ball of nice smelling stuff.
A ball or perforated, what? I don't know how to say words. Container of sweet-smelling substances such as herbs and spices placed in a closet, drawer, or room to perfume the air, formerly carried as a supposed protection against infection. And so, what? This turns me into a manicore? This turns me into a succubus? I mean, what?
Well, I mean that's a good thing about these fantasy games is you learn a lot of really random nomenclature that they throw out there just to make the words more interesting, so you could tell things apart.
Yeah.
I mean, just it was so weird to me. It's like it's one of those things that makes me feel stupid. I'm like, I don't want to ask what this means, but I want to ask what this means because it makes no sense to me.
There's not really a reason for you to know that ahead of time.
Yeah. I mean, but I feel better knowing that this is one of those things that no one really knows, right? It's not just something that I feel like a dummy about. Unless if I was an English major, maybe I should know what it means. Even then, I don't think so, right? It's just a random kind of word. It's those Senate balls you put in your shoe so they don't smell bad, right? I don't know. Okay. So going through chests, do you guys, when you see a bronze chest, do you just say, all right, turning around, not going to touch it? Or do you actually care about those bronze chests? I mean, those only give like high potions and stuff, things that you could already have, right?
They can also give you the currency you need for the mounts and things like that. So in groups, typically you will see people go for the bronze chests, but in
really?
solo, it's in the groups I was in, the people would be like, oh, there's a bronze chest, in this room, we might as well grab it. Okay. Or they'll like dip in real quick and not want to fight anything and grab it real quick. But if there's like mobs in the way, maybe they won't. But in solo, it's inviting catastrophe. Any chest you open is like, is it gonna be a mimic?
Maybe.
Is it gonna blow up on me? Is it gonna be bad? Is it gonna be good?
Blowing up on you is fine as long as no one sees you. It's just that mimic is what kills you. It's so bad, and I love that. I love the hate for mimics that's coming back again. Right? They're making it
awesome.
Dangerous.
It's awesome because it's totally random. Like the Lost City 4-man dungeon. Like you knew where the mimics were every single time. So it's like the first time it's like, oh, mimics are back. But it's like any chest could be a mimic at any time.
Yeah.
And the final floor.
They weren't in the game until this dungeon. They were there, but they weren't really there until Deep Dungeon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the final floor mimics you can't stun. So, did you want to talk about their pox? Like how terrible the pox is that they give you? Or?
Yeah. So I'm gonna be honest with you. I saw the pomander of the pox removal before I understood what pox was. I was like, what the. Okay, it removes pox. All right, cool. Well, I mean,
how bad could that be?
Yeah, whatever. Then you get a 10-minute like dot on you that does what does all pox do again?
It makes it so you don't recover health naturally, and it ticks for a small amount of damage on you, and it lasts for 10 minutes.
And it
makes you do less damage.
Yeah, that's the big. That's
what the
devastating.
hell, man?
Think about that on a DPS. You're soloing on a DPS, or even on a Pally. It's like maybe other tanks would be even worse than Pally. But Pally before they get clemency, it's just so bad.
I mean, that could end a run, right? And so if you're doing a solo, that might end the run.
Yeah, I told you I had to do the final boss with Pox, and it did not work out well.
Yeah,
it's so funny. Like I have it on my stream. Basically everything. It was a really really bad run, and I got to the end, and I was like, okay, I'm actually looking pretty good. And then there was one gold chest. I'm like, okay, as long as that chest, like I could really use a good pomander for the boss. As long as that's not a mimic, I'll be fine. It was a mimic. It's right
Famous
at the end.
last words.
I only had 8 minutes left to clear, so I was like, oh, well, I guess I have to do the whole thing with Pox then.
Jesus, man. All right. So, go ahead.
I was going to mention some ways to maybe avoid Pox, just because I learned them a little bit later, which I wish I knew ahead of time.
There's ways to avoid Pox?
Well, first off, floors below 40, you should stun the mimic and stop that from happening when they do their
Can you?
infuriation.
Oh yeah, I didn't know you could do
stun.
anything to mimics. I thought they were just basically invincible.
You have to interrupt the pox cast. It's like, what is it called?
Infatuation, and it starts with an I, and it's got a pretty long cast.
Yeah. So definitely stop pox from occurring as best you can. If it casts on a pet, it won't do anything, so it can happen. If you have like Tainegi tanking one, it won't do anything.
He will target you, even with Tainegi on it. It picks a random target, I believe.
I don't know if we just got lucky on the Titan stun or something then, but it seemed like it was.
Yeah, I never saw my pet get it when I was in there solo.
Well, it's immune to it. So yeah, there's that. But on the final floor, if you're soloing or even if you're doing and you want to be able to feel comfortable opening chests and not get poxed, you want to save your witching pomenders for it and use a witching pomender to prevent it from happening. It's the only way you can prevent it from happening without just removing it with the purity pomender. So yeah, that's like I had a ton of witching pomenders on one of my runs, and I was like, oh yeah, I should be using those for the mimics. That's what I should use them for. And then on the second run, I did, and I was actually able to kill them and stuff.
Okay.
And you cannot line of sight the cast. I tried that. I pulled it to a corner and I was waiting for it.
Well,
and I ran around the corner and it shot me through the wall like a jerk.
It is like it cast it. It's going on you. If you finish that cast.
That's rough.
I just remember. I'm probably gonna forget to say this, but fun story. I killed a monster once, and it dropped the chest. And I opened the chest, and it was a mimic. So drop chests can become mimics. And then I killed that mimic, and then it dropped another chest. The mimic dropped the chest after that, and I was like, is this the same chest that was a mimic? Like,
I wonder if you can get caught in a loop. I wonder if it does let you get caught in that loop.
Okay, my guess is yes, you can, but this one was definitely not a mimic. Okay. But like, why not? Right? It's just a monster dropping a chest again. So yeah, you could. It could drop a chest, become a mimic, drop another chest, become a mimic.
God, mimics all the way down.
It's like it's not. I'm not killing that chest. It just keeps pretending to be a regular chest, and then I open it again. I should probably stop doing that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the enchantments on the floor too, while we're at it. And so, what are floor enchantments that you have to cleanse? You have to get rid of it. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Can you live through any of them and just make it work, or?
I mean, sometimes you're not gonna have a choice. You're gonna have to live with what you get. The worst ones are definitely the gloom.
Right.
That one's horrible. No natural regen is, you can manage that. I don't know, which one do you find were the worst, Arkk?
So gloom I sometimes leave alone if I was playing a tank or doing, I'm okay with it. It's bad if you're kiting, though. I would definitely get rid of it if you're kiting. But I try to deal with them unless it's like a double debuff one. And it's like, but yeah, no items, no abilities could be pretty devastating because no items do mean no potion use, and that might be your only source to heal. So no items is probably one of the worst ones if you don't have a potential heal. No items and no regen. No ability use is god awful too, and so is blind. Blind is like misleadingly terrible. I would actually. So the thing about gloom is like no items, no ability, and blind is terrible. Like that's just awful. Gloom is you could probably manage that like at least a little bit. Like you could maybe use a pomender to deal with that. Another pomender if you don't have a serenity, or just if you want to hold on to the serenity if it's just that. Sometimes I've actually gotten gloom and haste before, so it's like
You kind of cancel each other out.
Yeah.
I'll just leave this alone.
So, what about the no knockback one? So I thought that was kind of funny. I don't know, maybe I was, as a machinist, it's kind of funny to me because I'm like, people get mad at my knockback anyways. Why do I need to knockback? But that kind of, does that really even matter? I mean, it kind of matters because
an anti-rage enchant.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, the Rage Pomander, your attack that instant kills, the part that kills is the knockback. So when you can't knock him back, it doesn't kill anything. It's strange.
Yep. So it stops you from using Rage on that floor, basically.
I thought it was just a lot of damage.
Nope.
No.
Oh,
well, it doesn't work. Don't use it on bosses either, too. It's the same issue on bosses. It doesn't do anything against bosses unless you have issues with the ads.
Hold on, guys. I gotta turn my alerts off. Give me a second. Sure. I'm gonna change screens because it's gonna go crazy here, and I gotta kill it. Let's see. Right. Oh god. All right. So I can go back here. I'm gonna leave it on this one, but I got studio mode. I forgot all about my studio mode. So I can turn it off here. Remove, and hopefully that works. And now let's go back. Thank you very much for the host there. Happy. I think he just finished his stream. And so it went really loud in my ears.
He got his solo monk killed. Did he get the clear? He said, right? Or did he just work
on it? Yeah, he was on the last boss. He got the clear, right?
Yeah, very likely on a monk. Yeah, very likely. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm. So congrats to him on that. I don't know if he's the first monk to do that solo.
Probably the first monk.
Yeah. Because I'm seeing it pop up on Reddit. Solo this, solo this, solo this, and they're just coming up, and I don't know if
I'm happy people are doing that. I'm happy people are doing that, so we actually kind of like know that it's happening and it's possible, because now we're pretty confident at this point that like any class can do it now. It's just really good for the community, you know.
Yeah.
If a monk can do it, anyone can do it.
And again, I don't know if a monk, like, again, I think monk, it's just that not having ranged ability, so it'd be interesting to see how he dealt with that problem.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Because monks would be stronger than ninja on bosses and stuff like that, especially when you land every single positional and have Fist of Earth.
Jesus! Like I'm going to be honest. Monk is one of the ones I avoided for a long time. Playing it just as a class in general, because I hate it doing positionals. Like it just knowing, I have to be at this position and at this position and at this, go flank and back, and I hated it. I don't know why. Maybe because when doing dungeons, it's like impossible to do half the time because the tank's just moving back and forth and mobs are kind of pushing each other around and someone else is doing more DPS to me, although I'm working my ass off to try to get the positional, and I'm like, I don't care anymore. Black Mage is stupid. I hate it. Maybe I should play Black Mage. Maybe that would make me happier in the long run.
Or Machinist. What are you talking about? Yeah. Play Black Mage over Machinist.
Machinist is so much fun. Oh, I love Machinist.
I know. Wait, well, I'm maining Machinist now, right?
Oh, you are?
And the thing that I noticed right away, like, I was like, oh, I love ninjas so much. It's like the most fun class. But when I go and do any raids or anything with the Machinist, not only is the class really fun to play, but it's just a lot easier to like go in with any group and play just as well as you could on it with any other group. Whereas Ninja, it's like I need to know which way the tank is going to face the mob at this point. I need to know which tank is tanking at this time. I need to know when's the best time. Like I have to plan all this stuff out that's very group specific. And if I don't, my damage really suffers a lot. And it's like, or even just melee uptime for any melee DPS. But as Machinist, it's just like I just got to do the same stuff. I don't care which way you're facing the boss. Whatever. I'll just keep doing my rotation. It's one thing that I really like about it. Like, it's actually a lot more fun to raid on the Machinist than it was for my experience in Ninja. I just love Ninja so much, though, so I always have a soft spot for it. But it's still pretty fun to raid on a class that you have to worry about positionals.
Yeah, Summoner's so boring. I'm glad I don't play that job.
Come on, Summoner's the best.
What was that?
I'm just trying to throw a jab.
Summoner's not positionals either, so.
Yeah, it's true. No, I used to play Summoner as my alt back in the day before Machinist came out, and Machinist, again, it was just too enjoyable for me. I think they aced that job when they made it. Anyways, completely off that tangent. That's for another show. But, let's go into a little bit. We have a couple of questions here that I think are kind of unnecessary to go through, but we're going to go through them anyways. Hold on, let me pull up these questions. I think there's one question that was actually asked, and it is from Waltz. And it pretty much just says, why is Frosty wearing a plaid shirt? I thought I'd change it up a little bit, I wanted to be the other part of Balana's lumberjack look here.
All right, we've got to split it up. Can't have it all concentrated in one area.
So if this shirt was on Balana, he would definitely be in the woods with an axe on his shoulder. I mean, that's it.
I would instantly be transported onto a brawny paper towel.
Yeah.
That'd be me.
Exactly. And I don't know, I just haven't worn a shirt in a while, so there you go. No, Arthas, I don't. Never. I have no clue what he's talking about. I know he's lining up a joke, though. I know he is. Alright, so if you guys have any questions at all during the show about Deep Dungeon or anything silly, anything ridiculous, please ask them now. We're going to go through the next section, which we're going to do a little bit more about advice that we might have not hit so far.
I have a question.
Alright, Balana, ask your question.
What the hell is the use of that Pomander that spawns a Mimic or a Mandragora? I've been afraid to use it because I hate Mimics.
You should use it. It's really good.
What does it do?
So if you don't have a wheel to deal with the Mimics, it's bad. So like I was on my Pally and I had a stun and I was doing it on lower floor, so it was okay for me to do it. Or you could just avoid the Mimics. But what it does is the Mandragoras are one-shot kill and they give a massive amount of experience points. So if they spawn Mandragoras, you just like one-shot them and they scream and they stun you and that's it. But they give you a crap ton of experience points. So it's worth it if you can deal with the Mimics. But yes, there are Mimics too. So yeah. It's also good to like pair with like a Fortune, right? Because you're one-shotting them too. So.
Right.
I gotcha. And I'm going to be honest about some of those buffs with Pomanders for Fortune, and it says current floor, and one says next floor, and then the buffs all show on the one that you use it, even though the enchantments happen on the next floor. Like, some of that stuff's a little bit goofy. I think they could have changed that up.
Maybe show what current enchantments are occurring, yeah.
Or just add it as, like, a buff on your buff bar, saying, hey, you're more likely to get a chest or something. I don't know, just some visual way to say, hey, you used this last floor, it's happening this next floor.
It's pretty obvious when one of them is up because of its effect, but I do agree with you, because when you're going in with multiple people, it's nice to know that someone has already used a sight, or specifically has already used a safety, which is remove all traps, right? It's like, did I use a safety on this floor? I can't remember anymore. No. Are there traps or no traps? I don't know.
Yeah, I would like it to be a little bit more obvious. Maybe that's the stupid person in me that just wants things to be easy.
Just like add it to the floor enchants or something. It's like, no traps.
Yeah. All right, so going down and using these Pomanders, let's talk about where they're actually really useful at, because I would love to use the Lust or the Rage just any time, just to run around and be something else. By the way, advice for a new job for the game: be a job that turns into something else, like other beast or something, like, and you just run around. Yeah, I mean, what was it? I think Final Fantasy VI. You become that thing that you turn into a summon, right? That's what Terra did, or am I completely confusing that because I haven't played it in a while?
There was Vincent in Final Fantasy VII, though.
Vincent in Final Fantasy VII, yeah, and so that's an awesome concept, and they can do it. I mean, you just say, hey, I turn into this really overpowered job for a few minutes. It's kind of like a mini limit break within the job. That would be awesome.
I mean, they have that. It's called a summoner. You channel Bahamut.
You don't turn into anything. You just...
Maybe eventually you do turn into Bahamut. Bahamut Prime.
And you don't have to make new models. You could make slightly different colored models of what different things that are in the game. I don't know. Maybe
that's like the alternative to Beastmaster, is Beastmaster turns into Beast as opposed to Oni Beast. But
yeah.
They do.
Do it. I would love that job, and I would play the heck out of it, man. I don't know why, but
it's just describing Druid.
Yeah, that's the first character I played was Druid. And WoW, so I don't know. I love turning into cats. I'm going to tell you guys a real quick tangent story about how I made one of my real-life friends hate me and leave the guild that our friends made together in WoW. All right, so I played Druid, he played Warrior, and we were dueling each other. And so we're going and we're fighting each other, doing our little things. But when you played a Druid, what I would do is I would do the little entangling thorns and keep them in place. And then I'd run, and then I'd start casting stuff on him. And then I'd go out of bounds. And then as soon as he went out of bounds, I would root him, go back in bounds, and then he would lose because he was out of bounds. And then he just, I don't know why, but all his pride was just gone, and he was just like, I can't stand this. And he just left the guild, and he didn't join the guild again for like months.
Have Frosty destroyed someone's life?
Yeah, this was at the beginning, vanilla WoW, and I can't, those were the golden days, and I just want more experiences like that, so please bring in Beastmaster that could turn into Beast. So anyways. Back off the tangent.
That?
Yeah, so I can end relationships by doing duels with them, right? Okay, so...
I know you're so evil, Frosty.
Yeah, I know.
It's not easy to see, but there are these evil intentions within me. All right, Lust. Let's talk about Lust and where we can actually use that as a positive effect, because it doesn't seem as powerful as it really is. It seems like, to me, it only seems really powerful on bosses. Tell me where you guys feel like Lust is actually most powerful.
Well, Arkk said it earlier, where you pull a whole bunch of stuff, pop Witching, which will make them all just auto-attack you, then you pop Lust and AoE them all down.
Okay. So, I always thought, after you did the Witching, you were pretty much done. The things don't do a lot of damage, do they?
They do a lot of damage.
Really?
They still hurt. They still auto-attack. I died to it once.
You need to deal with... Yeah, absolutely. You need to somehow, like if you're a healer, you need to get those regions up. Have a steal up. Like, you might want to put a steal. It depends what level you're at. Or if you're tank, go into tank stance. But yeah, it works really well. Even for me, I do it to deal with bad luring pops too sometimes. Like Witching and then Lust. And even if I'm not a good AoE class, it's really good just to like clear them out quickly. Even if you single target after. But yeah, I've seen 4-man groups. They do that. It's like almost as good as Rage if you've done well. If you have someone healing you from the side, it's almost as good as Rage, because they die really fast when you start AoEing. You just need a tiny bit of AoE.
I gotcha.
Yeah, it's really.
So the one thing I noticed with Lust is it also gives a debuff, though, right? Invulnerability debuff.
Yep. That's
so
him.
is that mainly only useful on bosses, I would assume, right?
Well, it's part of the AoE thing too, right? Like you can't just lust unless like early floors 300 damage is pretty decent, but it quickly becomes too little damage,
Right.
where it's the vulnerability up is the only thing good about lust. So, like for example, 40 plus floors, you can do the exact same thing, witching lust, but you need to AoE, or else they're just gonna stay alive.
Okay.
They'll
So
die
you
really
wouldn't
fast.
recommend it for bosses at all, really, right?
Oh no, I would bosses is amazing. That's where you should try to save it as best you can.
Okay.
But if you want to clear a floor really quickly, less switching is an option if you have extras of those, because it's RNG. You might get a ton of those instead of.
What about
agents,
solo
right?
running with the last few bosses? Would it still be a good option?
I used less for only bosses when soloing.
Really?
Except when, like I said, I popped a luring trap. Yeah, because the vulnerability is so powerful.
Yeah, and it's too risky to try to do that AoE nonsense when you're just in there by yourself.
But I thought
Four
like
mobs-
it always does 300 damage, even with the vulnerability up, right? But I mean, I guess after the vulnerability up is after you're done with lust, then you would just.
Like
Okay.
I can give you a good example because I just did this right before the show. I managed to get a lust on the first set of floors, which is actually pretty rare, and I used it on the first boss. And 300 damage on the first boss is about 5% of his health.
Mhm.
But when I turned off, so I was like, oh, I'll just keep spamming it, and eventually it wore off when it was around 20% health. And when I changed back to I was playing machinist at the time, I actually did a lot more damage as a machinist with just the vulnerability stacks up than spamming a 300 damage
So if
attack.
you got the vulnerability up and then just after you got 5 stacks, just sat there and killed him, it might have been
I mean,
better.
if you're a
overall.
tank or a healer, maybe keeping it up. And this is just the first boss, so I know immediately that every boss after that, your damage attacks are better than just spamming a 300 damage attack. So what I normally do is if I have a good amount of lust for a boss, I'll get it to 5 stacks, DPS it. Hopefully you can kill it in the first 5 stacks, but when you're playing like Pally, probably not. And then when it's about to wear off, I go back into lust, refresh it, just do 1 void fire to get it to 5 stacks again, turn it off, and then keep DPSing again.
Okay.
If I have extra lusts to use, yeah.
And then for rage, do you guys only use that for floors? Those aren't really used for boss, or
They do nothing to bosses.
Yeah, you don't want to use
Okay.
it for a boss.
It's insta kill on any mob that can be knocked back though. So it's most of the trash mobs throughout the dungeon. It's really good if you're behind on levels. You want to try to catch up a little bit.
Mhm.
Yeah, you really want to, for rages, you really want to plan them out well, especially if you only get a few, because not only do they help you clear a floor very quickly, there are a lot of floors where groups of mobs are very tightly packed. Like I like pairing a rage and a sight together, because sight will tell me exactly how I can move and use my rage most efficiently. So that's kind of my favorite combo. That and then a fortune too if you have it, because you're killing so many mobs rapidly that you might get a bunch of extra chests. So
okay, I gotcha. Witching we kind of already went into. Those are really good for
Yeah.
mimics and for just crazy groups, huge groups.
Yeah,
of
it's a good oh shit
Yeah.
button.
yeah.
yeah, especially for the ones that
Alteration.
have nasty abilities. Yeah.
What do we do with alteration?
Oh, well, Balana asked about it, but yeah, like I said, it's on the next floor. You'll transform some enemies into
Right.
mimics, and potentially some enemies into mandragoras, and mandragoras die in one shot and give extra experience points. So
Okay.
they're great if you can deal with mimics. Then it's really good.
Okay.
Really, really good to use them. You'll get ahead in experience points.
But mainly only if you can deal with mimics really well. If you can't deal with them too well, you probably
Yeah,
want to
mimics
avoid
are devastating. You shouldn't use alterations. Yeah, not until you get a stun. So like Pallies get stunned really early on. So do warriors. Machinists get it around 35, I think, or something like that. I can't remember. Somewhere around there, or maybe 45. So I
Whoa.
probably would avoid alteration for a while on machinist until I get,
And-
or unless knockback works. I actually haven't tried knockback on a mimic.
Yeah, I was about to ask. I haven't
Oh,
tried
mimics?
knockback either. I was wondering if that would
Yeah.
work on it.
Nope.
Oh, okay.
I was so mad. I was like,
And
all
this
right,
is on the
we're in a
early
bad
floors, early
situation.
floors,
Let me
right?
push it back and slow it. That's what I do. Bad situation, push back, slow. Does not
Is this
work
on the early
mimics.
floors? Early floors?
On any floor, I didn't get a pushback on
Okay.
it. But then
Okay.
that's why I thought mimics were invincible, because I couldn't push them back. So
Yeah. So yeah, I would not use an alteration when I was soloing on my machinist until I got my stun, basically.
okay. Do you guys only use steel on like bosses, or do you use that like while going through doing mobs and stuff early on in floors?
I pretty much pop it whenever I get up to 3 of them, just because you can't. If you get another chest that has another steel in it,
Right.
you're kind of wasting it. So I tend to keep it around like 2 stacks, and then you save them for bosses. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, similar concept for steel. I don't use them. I use them as an emergency cooldown sometimes. Like, oops, I pulled 2 enemies and I can't tank 2 enemies at the same time without steel up, so I'll use steel. But yeah, I generally do the exact same thing, where I wait until I hit the cap, and then I hit a chest that's like, oh, you can't carry any more steals, and then I'll immediately use a steal and stay at the cap, because I need a steal for every single boss I do. Can never be in a situation where I don't have a steal to do the bosses. It'd be very bad otherwise. And then what I do, though, because you lose your whatever buffs you have on you after you kill the boss and go to the next set of floors, I always try to use a steal and a strength or any kind of buffs like that. And they last 8 minutes. They both last 8 minutes. I use them, and then it's like I only need like 3 minutes to kill the boss. I only need like 4 minutes to kill this boss. Like I kind of give myself a rough estimate. So then I make sure to use it for 4 minutes on the floor before the final boss. Is kind of what I try to do, so I don't waste the use of it.
Okay. No, that makes
so I get
sense.
a little more farm in, yeah. And usually the final floor is when it's like the most needed to do it, and you get the most experience from farming on those enemies on the final floor too for the boss, anyways.
Okay. All right. So any of these other ones, we kind of went into Fortune already, and kind of we just use it basically. Do you guys just use Fortune anytime that you have one?
Yeah, you might as well.
Yeah, Fortune makes it so enemies can drop chests, or a very high chance to drop chests, right? I guess they could always
at
drop
the very
them
beginning of a level, of course, right? A floor.
Yeah, like I said, I try to pair them with a sight. I try to pair them with a rage. If I'm not going to pair them with a rage, I try to pair them with some kind of one of the trap removal ones, so that I know that I'm planning to do a lot of exploration. I'm probably going to do a lot of farming too. So yeah, I pair them with like steals, strengths, and sights, stuff like that. That means that I'm going to explore this whole floor as much as I can and farm it. And it's the same thing with affluence, which is, I don't know if that was the next one we were going to talk about, but the one that makes some chests. Yeah, the one that makes more chests spawn on the next floor. Exact same kind of concept. It's like, I'm going to explore this floor a lot. So sometimes, So
anytime that you're going to explore the floor, try to get the maximum amount out of the floor.
Pretty much, yeah. I was going to say, I was going to segue into the next one, which was flight.
Yeah, always use it with flight, guys. Make sure you use all these with flight. Yeah.
Well, not flight. Again, flight hurts your experience points, but yeah, I was going to say affluence and flight are good to use together because it's easier to explore all the rooms because there are less mobs on the floor. So just as long as it works well with your experience points, but I like that pair too.
Yeah, flight is a little double-edged sword like that, in that you're going to be gaining time because you don't have to kill as many things, but you're also not getting the XP. So if you're max level, it's only a positive thing. I think if you're in a larger group, then it's mostly a positive thing because XP isn't as big a deal. But when you're solo, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot missing all that XP.
If you use it at the wrong time. So yeah, basically for affluence and flight, it's like, okay, I'm gonna use flight on next floor because I need to get my time back. Even if I need to farm or not, I need to skip this next floor. So I'll use that, and then I'll use affluence with it also. So that's like, but I'll grab all the chests I can while I do it, and it works out really well because again, there's not gonna be giant packs of monsters on that floor. Also, just for the record, flight does reduce the number of enemies you have to kill to activate the exit. It reduces it by half, or close to half, I think.
Okay. So let's talk about how that works too. When you have a certain amount of enemies you have to kill to get the key, right? And everything else. Have you guys seen a range that you can... Is it like 1 to like infinity, or is it just like 4 to 8, or how many is the usual range?
It's going to be relative to which floor you're on mostly, because a big thing is as you go deeper, the floors get bigger and bigger. Like each set, I think you start off with 4 and then goes 5, 6, 7, 8.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
So there is an actual set amount of
I found it to be somewhere
floor.
between 6 and 8, I feel like, yeah.
Okay, because I thought it was completely RNG.
It could be. I haven't paid enough attention to it.
Yeah, I don't have any conclusive proof either way.
Yeah, but it's definitely between 6 and 8, and when I use flight, I usually have to kill about 4.
Okay. Yeah, someone was telling me that the lowest they had to do was 4 and the highest was 8 so far. But I don't know what that's relative towards. If it's like, the higher you go in floors, like the more you have to kill, or if it's just something that's completely random. Because I feel like sometimes I go in to some of the higher level ones and I just kill a few mobs and boom, I'm ready to go.
Yeah. Again, that might be because someone used the flight, because that's definitely one of the most noticeable things about that. And one of the reasons why it buys you so much time is because you just only have to kill a few mobs. So.
Okay. And again, I guess this is an important note. At the very beginning of a dungeon, especially if you're with people you don't know, you should probably say, hey, I'm the dedicated buffer. No one else does anything with these Palmanders, right?
Yeah, see how that goes in like random matchmaking. I know that I could probably generally manage not having buffs on me, so I let people just do whatever the hell they want, and I don't complain when they screw it up. It's fine with me.
That's something you learn from doing Duty Finder. That's something that you gain by
just let them do their own thing. You're the good. If you're a good player, you don't need them. You don't need to control them. Just let them do their own thing and work with it. That's the same thing for 4-mans, and it works just the same way in matchmaking. Unless they're being dicks and trying to vote abandon the party, then it kind of sucks. There's not much you can do. But
although I did have a group where we managed to. I was a random Duty Finder, and we farmed up 3 flights and. All 3 of the other people popped it at the same time before going to the next floor. They're all just like, "Hey, yeah!"
Yeah, that's I was like, communication is big, guys. Communication is big. So it's like, but it's not the end of the world when you're 4-man yet, though. But if you duo, make sure you have good communication if you're duoing. You actually do need to use your commander as well still if you're duoing.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be kind of exciting to see. Like when I went in there earlier, I went in there just the other night and I said, I want to clear every floor as fast as possible and do as little as possible to get through these floors. Because I felt like that was more fun in the end. Because in the end, it's 4 people. It's going to be a little bit more challenge. But then again, you're going to miss a lot of stuff, right? But at the level 50, you're probably 60 by then, right? I mean, it's almost impossible not to be 60 by level 50. Or floor 50, you think, right?
That sounds like a challenge. You could probably... manage to dodge enough stuff, use enough flights, just kind of slip around all the mobs, because you can sneak past a lot of things in there that they don't have, either have sight or sound kind of aggro tendencies, so you can slip around a lot of the mobs. You can probably clear it without getting level 60.
I don't know if the minimum requirement to unlock the exit would allow you to do that.
That's what I'm curious about. I want to see if that's possible, and I don't know how to do it, how to prove it.
Me and Izu, when we were doing it, we did a lot of skipping. We just tried to get through the floors, and we got to the 4th boss at level 54, and pretty much just going right to the exit every single time. And I feel like we would still hit 60 before the final boss if we kept doing that.
I guess if you had perfect RNG and you got a flight for every single floor, so you only had to kill like 2 mobs every floor, it could be possible.
All right.
I do agree. Maybe it's possible. I'd like to see that too.
All right. World first person who beat Deep Dungeon at below level 60. That would be interesting. All right. All the different challenges. There's so many different things. Solo this, solo that, solo everything. Then do it within this time. Then do it at this gear level. All these different variations of how you could get past these floors and challenges. Which is interesting that people are doing these without any kind of reward at the end of all this, right? It's just, hey, I'm doing it for the challenge.
For soloing and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, for soloing or for doing it with any kind of disability or anything that you can do to make it difficult for you, right?
My reward is not having to work with people.
Nice, yeah. Which, I'm going to go ahead and put in my little complaint about there still not being any kind of in-game achievements, difficulty achievements, where you're going through and doing Savage. You're like, do Savage, but have this kind of handicap. And then you get an achievement with a title or a mount, or even just a build-up of achievements that eventually lead up to a mount. Right?
Yeah, that was an interesting thing they did with WoW during Wrath.
And started doing Wrath. I can't see it being even remotely difficult to do. They could have added the same rewards and achievements from Deep Dungeon and simply just added triggers for achievements in some of these Savage runs, and it would have been, I think, 10 times better. For people who are actually actively playing this game all the time, people who are burning out from, and patch 2.3 is, or not 2.3, 3.3 is the perfect time to implement stuff, like those odd patches. Then you have all the in-game people who have already cleared everything with before then, has a whole nother 3 months of difficult things to do before the next tier, right?
Yeah.
Well, they are going to do that kind of with this content because of the leaderboards,
right?
It's
you don't even have to put in this dungeon. Just ignore it.
Just
skip this. Just add in those achievements every odd patch to the last tier. And I mean, this is something that Layla said before when we talked to him, and this is what his biggest gripe is, not having that. And it just clicked. That makes no sense not to implement this. I don't know. But I mean,
I've heard this complaint so many times from so many people, so it's
and the amount of development time compared to this, and I don't know. Anyways, all right, back off that tangent. Let's go back to Deep Dungeon.
Square Enix's hands, whatever.
Yeah. So let's go back to this. Where were we? Sorry, I got all discombobulated.
Were there any Pomenus we didn't talk about? We didn't. Strength is kind of self-explanatory.
Yeah, I mean,
damage. You get stronger.
Serenity
you do more damage.
Serenity clears 4 enchantments. We kind of talked about that because it was when we were talking about enchantments in general. Impurity removes pox. So not too many tips about that. Those are all very straightforward.
Yeah, you always want to clear pox every time you can, right? Unless if you have 30 seconds left on it. Maybe
don't clear pox if like used an alteration. Or maybe you don't necessarily have to right away, and there's still a chance of mimics spawning afterwards. There was definitely a case where I was in a group and we did an alteration. There were 2 mimics. One person pulled a mimic, killed the mimic, got pox, killed the mimic, and then used the purity. And then we fought the other mimic. I'm like, why did you use purity before fighting the other mimic? You just you're gonna get it again.
That's just painful learning curves, and you just got to yell at them.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that. It's nice.
And then they're going to be upset, and they're going to hate you. This jerk's trying to call me out on doing this, but they'll remember.
Oh, I didn't call
it. It'll make them better later.
I just observed. That's a fun story to talk about.
Okay. So, the biggest challenges you guys have run into Deep Dungeon, what would you say are the biggest challenges you guys have had so far with it?
Being patient.
Patient? Okay.
I'll be in there solo, I'm pulling mobs one at a time. I'm level 20. I'm a summoner. I've got a daughter too and a pet. I'm like, I might as well pull another thing. I can take another thing. I'll just kite all 5 of these things. Yeah, we'll just speed it up a little bit. And that's how you die. That's how you have to start over. So you really gotta buckle down. You gotta spend all that time farming. You gotta be patient about it to get that XP if you're going in solo. So
actually, starting from level at least the floor 30, you have to be patient even in a 4-man group. Right? Because if you go in there, you're like, hey, just pull everything in that room. You pull everything in that room, get a lore, and then or you explode or something else happens. You silence your healer somehow. You wipe, and it's painful to think that you die on level 39 or floor 39 or 29, right?
Yeah. I guess that's true. That's true. Just don't go fool. The phrase is, "Fools rush in where angels dare to tread." So.
Be angels, guys. Be angels. All right. Let's go back. All right. Oh, hold up. I only got Balana's biggest challenge out of that, which was patience. Arkk, what was your biggest challenge?
Let me think about this. Honestly, for some reason, that 4th boss is always a big wall for me. Everything leads up to how the 4th boss goes, do or not. It's like, did you fall behind on level? Did you save the right items for this boss? I don't know. Something about that boss. Them and mimics. Mimics.
Yeah.
Mimics. Yeah, God, those mimics.
Okay, I got
experiences with mimics, yeah.
So tell me real quick, what do you guys have any stories of just complete terror so far doing this? With other people joining your group or anything else? I mean, we've already heard some from you, Arkk, and I'll come back to you. But Balana, can you think of any that you're just like, this is absolutely ridiculous?
One of the few wipes I did have in just random party making is we pulled a room of mobs, and we pulled them all at once because we're lazy and we're trying to do it quick and AoE them down. Somebody's running around. They hit a lure trap, so 4 more mobs spawn. We're up to 7 then. A patrol of wraiths come in, so that's 2 more. And then another patrol of wraiths come in. And it was a quick way to wipe right there. Things really pile on real quick in there. If one little slip up leads to another one, leads to another, and everything comes crashing down on your head real quick.
Caster limit break helps out a lot, though, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, if you have it, yeah. The limit breaks are pretty powerful. I feel like they were more powerful for some reason.
Yeah,
why? They seem to do a lot of damage.
Yeah,
caster LB's half their health, so it's not too bad.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, what is it based off of, right? Because your weapons aren't there, so it's really powerful. It feels like
it might be based off of.
Did a melee limit break 1, and it did so much damage. I was like, holy crap, that's a lot more than I normally would see it do. The caster limit break just wipes the enemies. Yeah.
I mean, I've done that. We've hit this really critical situation before, and they were kind of low. They were at 75%. I did the machinist limit break real quick on them, and then they all died. And I
Yeah,
felt
I
like
wish
that
I
was
had
just a
that
little
one
bit too powerful.
soloing.
That was kind of earlier levels, I think, though. But it knocks things out. All right, so Arkk, what's another story that we didn't hear of great failure or success?
All right, so I already talked about like my terrible experience, like some of the worst things that happened on Pally. I'll give you two ones really quick. So one,
Okay.
I was going through between floor 21 and 30, and I was doing like all my farming and everything and spending less extra time and clearing stuff. And when you're soloing, if you disconnect, you lose all your progress. It's like that's a nice fear of soloing. So just happened to lose internet for a little bit, lost all my progress on that floor, and it sucks because I was farming for like 30 minutes. So
Right.
that's one awesome story. The other one is, of course, and Balana knows this experience too. Going in with one of the people in my stacks for the first time, we're just like, hey, let's just pull a bunch of mobs and alien them down because like I was playing warrior at the time, and just a couple of them happened to be some green slimes, and then they just all of a sudden destroyed us at like the end of the floor, and I was like, what was that? And yes,
Yeah.
apparently slimes. If they digest twice, they just explode and do tons of damage and kill you. And we had two that did that, so there was no recovery from that. And yeah, Balana definitely knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's a massive AoE too. Like I didn't know they blew up, and I was starting my second solo run to try to get back into it, and I had Titan Edgies tanking some slime over them. Like yeah, whatever, some slime, just throwing dots, and then it's getting low, so I'm like okay, I'm gonna start running up, and it explodes like right as I was like just the edge of the range of the explosion, and
Wow.
it took me out. So. Yep.
I've had so many times where I'm running and I see a group just like pop up like a lore. So basically, one person's ahead, then the other three people in the group are kind of running behind, and a lore trap hits. But the one person keeps running ahead and doesn't see the lore group, and then they pull their
Yeah.
own group, and they're just sitting there, just like no one's healing me. And then we all run in there with 6 other mobs with us, and then completely wipe. I mean, you have to be completely aware around what's going on with those traps, because man. That stuff happens instantly. And then when I see like tanks pulling stuff, I'm like, you don't need to pull that mob. Just don't pull it. Don't do it. There's no reason for it. We could go without it.
Yeah. Actually, just give me 1 minute. I just have to disappear for a minute.
All
Be
right,
super
you go
unprofessional.
disappear. We're going to go like make fun of you the entire time. Go do that.
Okay.
All right. So
Gosh, those glasses, really.
those
Like, come
glasses. Why does he wear glasses? Ugh. And his hair is all curly and stuff. Oh my gosh, what is he trying to do? Is he just like ironing his hair the entire time, putting in his curls? I mean, he wants to work all day on that, man. I don't know. Why does he do this stuff, man? His headset looks stupid too. Ugh. All right, I'm good.
on. So, all right, glad you got that out of your system.
Yeah, our headsets are awesome headsets. His headset is a boring headset. All right,
of course.
man.
So-
I'm just gonna be a sad day when I have to get rid of these guys.
So I got to ask Frosty,
Yeah?
what makes you give it a 5 out of 10?
All right, so again, going into it, how much work do you think that was put into this content to make it actually happen? The
Probably
walls,
less
the
than-
atmosphere is completely reused. Right? Like all the
Uh-huh.
different walls and maps and everything, they changed the mini map into this really simple, completely easy to program mini map, right?
Because it's randomized stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and then you have, so yeah, it's all blocky and all that stuff, and it's okay. Yeah, that's fine. You make it randomized like that. That's an easy way to do it. So that's not too difficult. You can make that happen. You put an RNG generator, or random number generator, involved with all this stuff. All right, and
Okay.
so first 40 floors, none of the mobs are special. There's nothing great about the mobs in the first 40 floors. They're very dull, you've already seen them before. Of course, again, completely random. Happens to just make this stuff. This is how you make this kind of stuff happen. All right, and so now you get into the next part with the music is great. But again, they're just pulling old soundtracks. They put a couple of new ones in there. I think they put a couple of new ones in there, didn't they?
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
a couple new
okay.
songs.
All right, and so, but they put them in there. And it's kind of nice. So that's a cool thing that they did. I'm glad they did that. Again, not very difficult to do, though. So 3
Susan.
things that were not very difficult to create. Probably took a very minimal amount of programming and setup to do. Then they add a nice little cool retro interface, right? That's kind of cool. I like that. Again, 2 seconds of work probably. I'm imagining this stuff's really easy to make, right? I'm sure I could be completely full of it, but my knowledge of how things work would see that as being something simple to add in.
So the biggest thing you have against it is that there's too much recycled content in there.
It's was something very easy to implement, but in the end, it's not. It's kind of interesting, but you're just brainlessly going through some of this stuff sometimes, right? And then when you hit the traps and everything, you're like, oh, this is dumb. It's okay. That's what makes it more exciting. That's the only thing that makes it exciting is the part that you could fail if someone does something stupid. But it's not very interesting and appealing in the long run. And you get stuff out of it. You get a glowy weapon. Everyone was like, where's my glowy weapon at? I want a glowy weapon. So it came with that, okay? All right. Then this content, I believe, is going to be dead soon. It's not going to last long. With all content that's ever been out, this stuff doesn't last long. It's not as bad as Diadem.
I think it'll be better than Diadem, maybe better than Chocobo Racing, with people still doing it.
Similar to 4-man dungeons, in my opinion. I mean,
it seemed like a 4-man. It seemed basically they put less work than creating a 4-man dungeon into making this extremely hyped content for Deep Dungeon. This was something that they hyped up really, really huge up, and then it becomes a grind. You've already seen this stuff, but you have to do it, of course, for the weapon. It's just another part of a grind.
It is. Yeah, some people like this kind of stuff, though, you know?
Once they're done with their mount, most people, 99% of people, when they're done getting their mounts, their minions, and their weapon, they have no interest in going back and doing any of this content again. When you start and you go through as a new player, again, this is something like it would be a great thing for new players to go in, but this isn't good. I don't think it's great content for them unless if you have someone sitting there as a veteran player already holding your hand with this stuff, because you're going through and you can't learn anything about the class or job. You're just smashing your face in there. So we're going to have this whole nother level of players who come up and hit 60 and they're just smashing their face against the keyboard because they don't know what to do with any of their job. It's coming too fast. It's too rapid for them. And I enjoy introducing these skills and jobs slowly to players because I feel that's required. If you go to a level, instant level 90 in WoW, most people going through that are still lost and confused about how those jobs or classes work. So this is similar in that fashion where you think it might be teaching you something, but I don't think it's really teaching much in the end of it. And they don't have in-game achievements out. They could have done in-game achievements with the work they put into this. And I would have been 50 million times happier. Most of the players in the game would be much happier with that content that is so much easier to program than this, which was already kind of easy to do.
I feel really bad for the achievements they did put in for this. I feel bad for the people like Chia who are the big achievement hunters because they need to make one of every single weapon to get all those achievements.
That's nothing to him. Do you know the kind of achievements Chia has done?
Oh, I do. Yeah, I know.
Some achievements take 2 years to do, and he's probably done them by now. So when it comes to achievement, I can't see anything being too difficult with seeing what Chia has done with achievements.
It's 10 to 15 clears per weapon is what I've heard. Word on the street is.
Yeah.
Times that many weapons, times that many hours to do it, you're looking at 300-ish hours? Mm-hmm. All the weapons?
Yeah.
Good amount of time. It's a good chunk.
It's going to be a lot of time for him. I do agree. But, I mean, that's kind of what he lives for anyways. I can't see that being too crazy. I'm seeing this content as something that it definitely, of course, when you have new stuff coming out, you want to hype it up a lot. You want to just go crazy and just hype as much stuff as you can. But it still didn't meet the hype, which is a classic trademark of a lot of stuff that they're implementing into the game, is that when they start to implement this stuff, it doesn't live up to the hype, and it's letting down players. And so their expectations are falling down, but it's still not hitting the hype that they build up. Like, the expectations are still going lower, but it's still not hitting that expectation. This is coming from me, who's played for 2 years, so I have different expectations of other people who might be playing that are new to the game. People who have been playing since beta and 1.0, they have different expectations to me, but this is how I felt. And I have to keep reminding myself, well, this is just extra content they put in the middle of a patch. It's not like it's supposed to be like some highlight headline, but they made it a headline.
It's also not finished yet, too. Like, this is not the finished version of Deep Dungeon. Diadem they sold to us as, like, this is exactly what we wanted it to be, and it's an experiment, and it didn't work out, and we're going to re-implement it. But this Deep Dungeon, they have definitely said that this is just not the completed version of it. This is like a quarter of Deep Dungeon. Like, here's your taste of Deep Dungeon, but they're going to finish it in 3.5. when they're going to put all 200 floors in, and then it'll be a totally different beast, and that's when leaderboards are going to be in too.
And
so
yeah,
I knew
hope,
what this was.
Again,
I hope you're
right?
We can have that conversation at 3.5, right? But
yeah, we can talk about it then. Hey, did it live up to that? But I that's what I'm kind of feeding off of all this new content. Luckily for me, I spend maybe at max 15 hours a week in this game, and that's a lot for someone playing a video game, right? Putting 15 hours into a video game, sometimes that's an entire game. Right? You buy a game, it lasts 15, 20 hours. That sounds about right. Metal Gear Solid, when I played it, was a 20-hour game, 10 hours of cutscenes. But like this is great for how much time I spend into it. I'm not going to overdo anything. I'm going to probably go through as a casual content. But it's not enough to be like, I'm really excited. I want to log in. I really want to do this stuff. There's so many... Doing this show for the last year and a half, I've talked to so many people of so many different mindsets, so many really hardcore players, so many casual kind of players that can't kind of come through, and this content doesn't really feed those people. It gives them a couple of weeks of something to do. It's like, oh, well, I guess this is something to do. It's not, hey, this is great fun. This is lots of enjoyment, right?
That's the nature of the beast. That's how these theme park MMOs go, is you get a new attraction, you ride it a few times, then you get off and start looking for the next ride.
Yeah, and is this
how it
good?
Rewards lore, SO, and experience points. Like, there's reasons to revisit it, and it's also got solo potential. Like, a lot of the reasons why content dies when it's not, a lot of people don't like it, is because you can't solo it. You need a group to get together, and it's like sometimes you might really feel like doing it, but you can't get like 3 others to go with you, or 7 others to go with you. That would be like old raid content in some cases, or diadem as well, right? But at least for this content, has that solo duo potential that you can just kind of go in and have some fun, and you do get rewarded with current, you can cap off of it. You can get Battle Materia 5 out of it, which is a really good way to do that. So there's stuff to it. And again, this is I think they sold it as exactly what it is. This is what they were trying to create.
I thought they sold it as more. That's what I was... I'm going to be honest, this is kind of what I thought it would be, but I was hoping for more. I guess that's the best way to put that.
I don't know what else you could have hoped for with it. Like, this is exactly what it is. Like, just like a grindy version of Final Fantasy 14 that you can kind of repeat constantly for like certain rewards, and it has a lot of RNG to it. That is soloable.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't know what else I could expect from this to be like better, except for not being this and instead being achievements. So,
I think they hit the mark a lot better than they did with Dino Den. At least, yeah. I think we can all agree on that.
No, we can all agree. Like, the only thing I see Diadem being is something that's a requirement for crafting half the time.
That's all it is now. You go in there, there's nobody killing mobs. They're all just punching trees.
Yeah, the new Diadem's going to be like, here's an objective. Go figure out how to clear the objective. So it's going to be like, go find this monster and kill it, or go find this place and do this. So it's going to be very objective-based. That you will require exploration, but I don't know if that's necessarily going to be fun or not. But
well, let me continue on my disappointment right here.
Yeah, sure.
All right, so going on to this next part, Feast, again, it ended. The season 1 ended, right? Just with this patch. That's
right.
So Feast is something I love. I love how the system, I think it's fine the way it was, except for the way the leaderboard and how they do all the competitive parts of it. Going out and fighting people, that's great. When you get into 4v4, that sucks. That somehow that got messed up really bad, and no one really does it, because it's hard to get 4 people to go together with that. That's, again, content that has really high potential, but it just fell short. And I feel like the way that they have the system, I thought was going to be improved, but it's not really that improved from Triple Triad.
Interesting.
Right?
Just like, sorry, a little bit off the topic, but it's interesting because I've actually seen other PvP games have issues with team queues as well, and trying to go away from that and trying to find more advanced systems of queuing you up when you go solo, or with the smaller sections of players, and making that all encapsulated in one progression system, so people are queuing in the same tree. It's interesting.
Dynamic queue, anyone?
Yeah. No. That's League of Legends is kind of getting into that. Like, I don't think they have team queues anymore or something like that.
Now, let's talk about Overwatch and their queues, right? And so you do solo, like, rank stuff in Overwatch. It's just as bad as doing, any kind of solo content in Final Fantasy. It's just a universal issue, though, right? You go in there, you have no clue who you're teamed up against. These guys could be lazy, and they could say, oh, well, we messed up really quick. I'm just going to not even try. I don't care. So that's the same thing with Feast. So I guess that's a whole nother beast. But how they have the ranking system worked, I think the leaderboard was really exciting for Feast, but it didn't get to the point of where, hey, stuff is uncheesable. That's what you're looking for, is uncheesable competitive content.
Yeah, they're always good. Final Fantasy is always going to be behind the curve on PvP. They went in at a pretty good starting point, still behind, but it's not a PvP game by nature, right? It's not going to compete with Overwatch. Is going to improve, and so is things like League of Legends or all the other big PvP games out there. They keep improving and innovating on how to make things better, and they're very, very strict about not making sure that their queues are not. They're not separating their player base into many different queues, so that many people are in the same lines of queues. And Final Fantasy 14 doesn't do that, right? Because again, it is a theme park MMO, and it's like do whatever you want whenever you want, right? Mm-hmm. So they need competitive PvP. Yeah, that's something that they'll have to figure out to fix that 4-man problem, right? Yeah. But solo queues are pretty popular, right?
So yeah, no, solo queue is the popular thing for Feast. That's all that really exists. Team doesn't really exist that much that I know of, because that's the easiest thing to cheese, right? So let's take it back here to Deep Dungeon with their leaderboards. And so going forward with their leaderboards with Deep Dungeon, it's not going to be cheesable if you do it solo. I can't. Can you guys imagine a way that this leaderboard will be cheesable? Because I mean, when you talk about FF logs and people getting the highest ranks on that stuff can easily be cheesed, right? You say, all right, all the players are going to support this one person to get them to the top of the leaderboard. And it's an unrealistic expectation for people who are actually going in there and doing a good job as their role as a healer, for example. That stuff doesn't really give realistic expectations. But with leaderboard with this, you're by yourself. There's no one in there to help you cheese it. You're not going in and... I mean, there are ways, I guess, to cheese it if you go into the whole like hacking part of it, where people are doing like the really...
That's not cheesing it then. That's cheating it.
That's completely cheating. And that stuff will stand out hopefully a little bit more. And enforcement is the other part of that needs to exist. And maybe that will be a little bit easier for them to enforce, because they can look at, oh, this is absolutely 100% clear. There's no way that this is legitimate. Hopefully. But again, that's way far in the future, and then we can kind of go into that a little bit later.
It depends how they rate people who solo it. I hope as long as it's by time, there's no way to possibly cheese that. Like, because the way to cheese it is outgear it or to try and get good RNG. But like they'll try and get good RNG will be really difficult when there's 200 floors, right? You can't. It's really hard to manage your time on that. But getting high gear is one way. But of course, if it's rated by time, everyone has the same advantage of getting the highest gear. And again, it's rated by class and job too. So yeah, I can't imagine them cheesing leaderboards, which would be really interesting. I'll definitely make some efforts at it when it comes out in 3.0. Like, what else am I going to do? At that point, I'd be waiting for an expansion. So
yeah, I mean, it's even separated from how your group's doing in Savage content. Like, you don't even have to have a world first group to be like super good with all your gear being really high, because all your gear matters. The only thing that matters is like,
you don't even need to have the class leveled, though you probably would eventually if you're playing it a lot.
You probably should. But, the other part coming back to it is that they're adding in lots of new content, again, creating new theme park attractions and spreading themselves out really large, right? To a population that doesn't, like, you go in there's no line for this ride. Does that make sense? And so, like, you kind of go into it, and there's lots of... It's a new attraction, so people are going to it. All these other rides are dying off. No one's ever going over there. As soon as someone lines up, all right, well, go ahead. Go around in the roller coaster. You're the only person here. Might as well start it up. And so things like Diadem and things like...
Chocobo Racing and
Lords of Dominion, right?
This feels like another 4-man to me. It's actually a better version of 4-man dungeons as far as I'm concerned. I like it a lot better than 4-man dungeons. I always liked 4-man dungeons a lot too. I had fun running through them. But it's good. It's like a mid 4-man dungeon kind of content. Like if they had 50 floors halfway through every single patch, that'd be really awesome actually. Kind of like mid content.
I think for the population, and this is just my complete opinion, 100%. I am not a super expert on this stuff. But having something where you have all these different things, instead of constantly spreading yourself out, stay. You have a population of a limited population. We don't have the biggest MMO population playing Final Fantasy 14. It's very minimal. Improve upon what you have, what's successful, and improve upon those things and just knock those things out of the park, and then start working if you need to expand more as more population pops up and you need more things for people to do. But having better versions of what's out there is, I think, more important than introducing new attractions.
Yeah, they're going for kind of a more scattergun approach. We're just kind of throwing everything out there and see what people actually like. But they haven't really followed up too much on a lot of the things they've thrown out there. Like, there's been no new chocobo track races. They said, we might put, a flying track for Heavensward, like, years ago. And they haven't even touched that at all. I mean, they're trying
when they said that they were going to do stuff with Triple Triad to make it better? I think they said something about tournaments and being able to host your own tournaments and things like that. I think they fall out the window, right?
Never happened.
Right.
So
a lot of that stuff was like promised for later in the expansion. Funny enough, I don't know if but I haven't heard about it for a while, right? So I don't know if they've been working on it this whole time or something on the side. I mean,
it also comes back to what Frosty was saying before, is like, you want to develop the content that people are playing. If they put something new out there and nobody's touching it, then why would they spend the time to make the content?
Which is why Diadem kind of probably doesn't have any kind of new things to it, because it kind of died off at a point. There's no point to keep advancing that if nothing. And when they start a new expansion, what do they have to do? They have to create new Diadem stuff. They have to create new this, new that, to make it better and more exciting. They didn't do that with PvP. PvP took a little bit longer before they introduced all that stuff, but they still had to create something new for it shortly after the expansion came out. And if you have to update all of these things as soon as an expansion comes out, you're going to have subpar, half-assed content coming out with your new expansion, where if you just focus on the things that matter with the next expansion, then you're going to have a really good expansion.
So what you're saying is they really just need to get a bigger development team.
Not even just a bigger development team. Just put their focus on the things, again, that matter. And least amount of work. All right, so think about the amount of work that you're putting into these things. Think about how much value you get out of the amount of work. And again, this is why it all loops back down to achievements with hardcore content and making things more valuable there. It takes no work, makes things more fun, more interesting. I don't know. So, all right. So I had this whole 10-minute rant. If you guys want to come back at me now that I'm done with my little rant here, tell me if I'm wrong. Is there anything?
You had a lot of really good points there. I do agree with you on a lot of things. Like, they really should work on improving the main focus of the game, which is PvE content. I see. Like, typically PvE content, either the questing, the raids, and the dungeons. Like, that's what the majority of the player base is playing when they play Final Fantasy XIV. If they could go in and make it 6 bosses every new patch instead of only 4 in the new raids, that would be a huge step forward, I think. Mm-hmm. If they kind of focus more in on that. And but I do also like that they're willing to branch out and try to do some crazy new things, like, or you're going to go on an airship to an area where you grind mobs for a while. Like, if they hadn't, taken that jump, they haven't taken that plunge, then they just keep stagnating in, where the game is, and you end up turning into WoW, where you get nothing new for a year straight. And
okay, so
they always
that's a good point.
Experimenting's
good. Again, experimenting's good, but finish your experiments. All right, go ahead, Arkk. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, it's every odd patch they do a lot of experimentation, and they do add in like a lot of side content and stuff like that, because they have multiple teams working on stuff in parallel, right? So they have a team working on 3.4 content, which is all the content people tend to like a lot of, right? Mm-hmm. I always say it's not can I have more of this? It's like, you can't, like, it's very hard for us to do more of this. Here's stuff on the side though as well. It's like they're obviously whatever their process is like, this is just the bonus content on the side, right? Like, this is just to keep us busy before their next best content. And they produce content at very high quality. It's understandable that a lot of people in Final Fantasy XIV, it's like, this quality is so high, I wish that we got more of the highest quality content. But obviously that's the sacrifice we're making for such high quality content. I just don't ever think of stuff like Deep Dungeon, for example, is blocking us from getting 6 bosses in a raid tier.
No, I don't think that
we want both, really.
I don't think it could be. I don't know how the inner workings of Square Enix works. And again, everything I'm saying constructively. I'm not saying, hey, this game sucks, it's stupid, all that stuff. There's some things that I care about, and I want this game to succeed because I love this game as a part of my life now. It's a big part of my life. This is the most an MMO has ever really come into my life, besides WoW, when I met a lot of friends through WoW and everything else.
The subscriber count is going up though, right? Like, it's what is it? Is it 6 million now?
Is it really? Well, I don't know.
That's not a subscriber. That's registered
accounts that have created. Yeah.
Was it? Okay.
boxes of the game sold. Like, I think I haven't seen anybody eyeball it in a while, but there used to be people who would like scrape the lodestone data and then be like, okay, from between this month and this month, did their HP change? Was what they were looking at, because there's only so much data you can pull off of there. And I think the numbers they were pulling, I can't even remember when this was. I think this was either right before Heavensward launch or like 3.1-ish. And then the number of active characters was under 1 million.
Well, right now, they're also introducing the game in different countries. And so I can see that they have all these different little development teams doing all these different little things to try to make all this stuff work and branch out and expand their player base. But I don't want them to kill the game at it. And again, when we talk about all these things, when an experiment happens and you're like, I'm working on a cure to cancer, and then it blows up, you don't just say, bye, I'm done with it. You go back and you figure out how to make that work. And I think that, again, when Arkk and I were on the show when we talked about Diadem, and we had so much excitement for Diadem. We love airships, right? We love flying on airships.
I was super hyped for Diadem before it came out.
They openly admitted it was an experiment. They wanted to see what players would find fun about what they threw out there, or what people were going to ask for, or what they wanted more of. I'm trying to think back. Like, I feel like we hyped it up a lot, but I don't know if Square Enix actually hyped it up too much.
They hyped it up for years. They said airship content. Build your airships, FC airships.
Go explore islands and stuff like that, right? But like, they never really said what you were going to do when you went there. They said you might encounter other players or stuff like that. Like, they didn't. They said what it was, but I actually, when I think back, I don't remember. There wasn't really details or specifications on what it was hyped up about. It was just like, I think maybe it was the fact that you could explore stuff a little bit more. And but yeah, I don't know. It turned into just like an experiment on their end. Like it was explore stuff. You do explore stuff. You just don't really get rewarded for it. Yeah. So that's the thing, right? People want rewards, and then they're like, okay, we need to add more structure than just people walking around and going, hey, what's in here? Oh, that's what's in here.
And I guess that experiment from Diadem kind of bled into what Deep Dungeon is now, with the randomized stuff and everything else.
It's going to bleed into what the new Diadem is, and we can make the final judgment on Diadem in 3.4. Because if they screw it up again, then
I've already made my final judgment on what it is now. I mean, they could create another one, and they would amaze me if it was something that was even worth touching. So
they're recreating it.
Yeah, and totally I don't know. I want to see a lot more out of the game that's going to make players happier in the long run. And there's so many people that I've talked to, and I feel like these things would be great ideas, and these are the wants and interests of the players, and that are not difficult to have in the game.
But achievement stuff, huh?
Achievement stuff, man. Just do it. That's all you gotta do. And fix feast cheesing. Find some way to make that to where no one can complain about who's at what point of this leaderboard. I just want to just stop it, right? No one can complain. Just done. How hard is that?
That's an issue with most games, to be honest.
I mean, people are going to complain and, all this stuff, but I don't want it to be like, well, I feel powerless because I don't have the abilities to do certain things. And Triple Triad is the spark of all of this, man. 1 year ago, Triple Triad, the most hyped thing I've ever had for this game was Triple Triad being introduced to this game. I would go to websites. I would go, hey, I'm going to go and try to figure out how to be the best Triple Triad player possible. And then it just turned into, within 1 week, no competition that was logical. Like, you had a whole bunch of people who just came in and found a way to abuse the system, and then it was over. No adjustments, anything was done to it.
Hosting their tournaments for it pretty often, actually.
I hosted a tournament. 5 people out of 8 showed up, and nothing happened. And I've advertised it for weeks, and I said, you're going to get... Maybe I didn't offer enough money. I said like 1 million gil or something to show up for just playing Triple Triad in a little tavern. It didn't work.
I don't know. Maybe you know more about this, Balana. I saw like Triple Triad link shells on Gilgamesh, and then people advertising it pretty actively. Like, do you know if there's a popular community out there on Gilgamesh specifically? Like,
all I know about was how much win trading was going on early on for the tournaments. You like when the tournament would reset, you'd go and you'd see everybody's alts just rushing towards like one guy, like, hey, beat me, and then
right.
That's about all I got involved in the Triple Triad scene there.
Yeah, I don't know. There's probably some active communities out there. I don't know if anyone's in chat knows about them. Please let us know, because I haven't got involved. But I saw that like Link Shell's actively advertising, so I assume they must be pretty active doing, and they host tournaments commonly too. Something to look into. I was thinking about it.
And if anyone watching disagrees with me, anyone at all disagrees with what I'm saying, please let me know. Like, I'm not trying to be a complete asshole here. Like, I love Square Enix. I love Yoshi. I love all those guys. I think that they have done a really great thing making this game. But there are lots of things that I would love to just say, hey, why is this not happening, and why is this happening instead? How can we make things better in order to make the game success better? And Dens, I don't care what you think, man. Whatever.
So let me just. This is
Just
probably
kidding,
not going to take too long. But one thing I'm totally on the opposite scale of Deep Dungeon, for the record, and there's so much that can be built on it. Because the point is that it's very easy for them to develop with it. They reuse. They add new stuff in, which has actually shocked me that they had anything new in it. That was very shocking. New models and stuff like that. I was like, whoa, they actually use new models. But it's like there's so much stuff they can reuse and reshuffle and put in like in an RNG kind of setting. And I love how a lot of the enemy abilities are very devastating and powerful. You actually watch for them. You actually want to stun them. You actually want to interrupt them. Status effects are like a little bit more important than they normally are in most other PvE content. It's a pretty fun experience overall. The greatest thing about it is how it's such flexible content. And again, I've talked about the solo stuff, right? Like, if solo is the most fun way you can play it solo. If duo is the most way you can play it, have fun doing it, play it duo. You know, it has the matchmaking system. If you don't have a lot of friends that you know who enjoy that content, you can just do matchmaking, which has its own issues because anything matchmaking does in any game. So I'm not going to complain about those specifically. And again, it's very, very flexible content, which means that, you know, it's not as restrictive as anything that they've ever put in the game. And it's very impressive because the way the Pomenders work and the items work and mix together, it enables so many things to like have fun doing it. Like, I was actually very shocked that DPS classes would be able to solo this type of content, but they found a way to enable it by basically just how it was designed. And I thought it was really impressive. And again, the whole dungeon is all about dodging abilities and not making mistakes throughout. And because of that, and again, they're very punishing if you screw up any of the dodge kind of mechanics, especially as you reduce the numbers down. And I thought that was really kind of a cool way to deal with stuff. And of course, you have the gear as well that can kind of take you to a certain point to make it easier if you need that. If you like, whatever you need to kind of get your clears and stuff like that and farm it up, which kind of gives a little bit of progression to it too. So yeah, like I was actually very impressed with the whole system all put together. Like, I think the solo experience was what shocked me the most because I didn't expect them to do it so well as they did.
Maybe that's the problem. I haven't done any of it solo yet, and so I don't have that experience.
You got to be okay with the grindy leveling though. Like
I don't think I am.
I really love leveling in this game, and I really love the dynamic, like the RNG and the Pomenders while leveling. It's really, really fun, and your classes have different rotations as you level and different strategies as you level. And it's like, I'm really weak at this level this level range, but I'm very strong at this level range, so I should plan out my items for that. It's like really kind of fun for me, and I remember a lot of that stuff is leveling some of these classes, and I'm like, oh, this is like the range where my class is absolutely terrible, like. Again, I've only done Pally so far, but it's like, oh my gosh, this is the range where I spam Halone forever. Oh, I forgot about how terrible this was. Then you kind of like, you work towards that next ability that like changes how your class plays. It's really, really fun.
Again, I'm at that midpoint. Like, I'm halfway, yeah, this is great. Halfway, I wish something else was done. Balana, what's your opinions on this whole thing so far after a few days, 4 or 5 days on it?
I think Arkk had a really good point there, where if you're just going at this with 4-man groups, you're going to be cruising right through it. It's going to be nothing special. You're like, oh, there was that mimic that did the pox on me, but whatever, I had a white mage just put regen on me. It was no big deal. Yeah. It's when you start putting in the limitations they allow to put they allow you to put on yourself is when it really starts to shine. Like going through and trying to do it solo, or going through and it's also the it's kind of the situations that arise just because of how random elements are in there. It's really a kind of a mechanism for emergent gameplay would be the buzzword to use there. And that you're running a 4-man dungeon, you know what every single pull is going to be, you know what every boss is going to do, you know, every, inch of the dungeon. You go into deep dungeon, there's always that factor of the unknown going on. You don't know if you're going to get swarmed over here. You don't know if there's going to be a trap or this and that. And I think that emergent gameplay... Items, right? Yeah, right. Or you won't get the good Pomanders, or you won't, you get gloom on every single floor. So it's just taking forever. But I think it's that that's what's going to give this actually some staying power. Is that it's technically grindy and repetitive, but it's grindy and repetitive in a new like random way. So
it's definitely in a way that I find very fun.
Yeah.
And like, you know what, I think I've playing this game for a really long time. I've always loved some of the utilities certain classes bring, and some of the like kind of niches of them. Summoner being one of the biggest ones, where they have the tank pet and they have really cool, interesting play style and how they can solo and like manage it. And this dungeon is like really showing off all the classes' potential at that. It's like, what can Pallies do? Like, here's the things that Pallies good. It gets a stun a little bit earlier, so this is why it has this advantage. Or I can cross-class cure. And then there's warriors who have that high DPS potential with they're very defensive and self-sustaining eventually as well. And it's just like all these like really cool niches about each class. And it's like, if you've been really passionate about that class for a really long time, it's like, you know, now you use all your abilities. Like, use all your abilities to their full potential finally to achieve something.
You still don't use Tribind though. I tried using it a few times to save my butt, and it didn't do anything.
Yeah, I figure bind will be useful to me when I do it with machinists a couple times to like bind when something gets too close, and then kind of run off and then
they're immune to it. Everything I tried it on was immune to it. I don't know about mimics.
I could bind some. I was able to bind some enemies at low levels. I don't know. I don't know. That's interesting.
Whenever I tried to save myself with it, it didn't work. So
okay, I'll have to try that out.
Now that you guys are saying that does bring out a really good point that if you do, you have been playing your job for a while, this is a good way to push it to its limit and say, hey, now I can figure out how to use this job as best as possible and find out some things are still completely useless. But, I mean, you do also see all the positive parts of it, and you get to use it to its full potential. And it's really odd how, it can be challenging in a 4-man setting still. I mean, you can mess up, you can die, you have to pay attention. But you can also do it solo. So, I mean, to have both of those ranges together to where you can make this stuff happen, plus make it still somewhat difficult in both settings. And I guess there's one other factor to that. I guess
it doesn't scale between the two.
Yeah, no, that's what I meant.
Solo,
yes.
They're all the same HP as when you're there with 4 people.
So it doesn't increase the difficulty by having more people. It doesn't decrease it. It's all the same. But somehow that still works with multiple different people going into it.
It blows my mind that they actually made it like balanced that way. And I think it has to do with the fact that like the amount of damage you take and do, it scales very, very like slowly, very, very slowly. Like I don't do much damage at level 60 at all. It's like barely anything. But it's just very easy for them to balance, I guess, because of that. Yeah, and I suggest to anyone who maybe's already kind of given up on this content or thinks it's kind of boring or too grindy or anything, I really suggest you at least go in duo, because probably duo is the most fun, casual way you can approach this content, and just like achieve it with a friend. Go in with a friend and just see what it's like. Solo is very grindy because you do have to there's a lot of stuff you have to put up front, like the leveling is very important. But if you duo, you can just probably go in and do whatever it takes to have fun and clear it. And you just need some good communication with whoever you're going with and it's like, oh, maybe we should use this item here, or maybe we should save this item for this scenario or something like that. And probably would have a lot of fun just doing it. And that kind of leads into potentially doing it solo, because once you kind of learn how to duo it's like very similar things. It's just like training wheels for solo in a way.
Okay. I'm gonna ask some questions here from a few of the viewers.
Awesome.
Boss Like Gavin said, how long do you think people will keep doing Deep Dungeon, which is kind of relative to what we were talking about here a second ago, and do you think it will become less popular and it's going to be hard to actually find people to do the content? For example, that was in his question, but I'm going to give an example here. With Raid Finder, no one can use Raid Finder solo. It just doesn't work. I mean, you might get a group if you're really lucky, but it takes a long time for that to actually work right now. Do you feel like this content will eventually get to the point to where you can't find people to play with? Or is the way where they said, well, it doesn't matter what the jobs or classes are, they can all join together. It's super flexible. Exactly. You think it's going to keep it alive?
I think that's going to be the saving grace, that you don't need a fixed party composition, that as long as there's 4 people queuing for it, there's going to be a new instance being created.
Is this like the first content that they did that for? I guess Diadem was another one that did it too, well, but yeah, I know.
Yeah. Go on, I'm sorry. Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's pretty much it. You absolutely got it correct. It's just because it's so flexible and anyone can queue at any time. You will always find people in the matchmaking doing it, checking it out for the first time, using it to cap, farming battle materia, farming the weapons. Like I've talked to people who aren't into raiding at all, or doing stuff with statics, or doing Nidhogg even. And I know Nidhogg has been considered one of the easiest primals, but people still don't have an interest in that content. They don't find it fun. This is their way of getting that 235 weapon, and they actually can get it pretty easily too. Just by if they
well,
enjoy
the
doing
grind
this
in
type of
comparison to doing like your relic, relic is ridiculous to think about. I don't even think I'm not even into that next part. I don't have the 80 whatever that you need to get the next part of the relic.
And it contributes towards farming your relic because you farm SO each floor and stuff like that, right? Yeah. So again, I did do Machinist today, and with minimal farming, it only took me 20 minutes to clear the first floor on Machinist. And very, very, very easy to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, first 10 floors, yeah. And that's just, I think that was like 60 SO or something like that. I can't remember. I mean, that's not too efficient, but as long as you're having fun with it, and I could probably do it a lot quicker than that too. And then it goes up a lot more. Like the final reward's pretty decent.
Oh yeah.
Always chance of getting those shards from chests. I don't know if they're going to increase the drop rate of that, but yeah, I think this will last for a while, and it'll probably die off as new content comes out, and then it'll get brought back as they expand on it. In each time, so it's like, it's kind of interesting that it lines up with the PvP feast season resetting, because like that's also something I was just talking about recently for PvP players. As long as they keep up with this, because I thought it was really cool that mid-patch they added in the feast season, and then the main patch they put in a battleground, right? Or they put in the shatter, and then feast kind of dies off as people do shatter, and then they add in the next feast season as shatter is probably starting to die off, and now everyone's doing feast again. If they add in another PvP battleground right with 3.4 drops, it's perfect because it'll go right back into 3.45 where they add in the next feast season, right? Mm-hmm. And if they do the similar thing with Deep Dungeon, it's kind of cool. It's only 6 week gaps between similar content essentially, which is kind of interesting. Like I'm kind of curious if that's what they were actually intending with PvP, because I thought what they did with PvP was pretty cool. How they kind of spread out the content. And again, Deep Dungeon, if they do the exact same thing, like 3.45, we have Deep Dungeon, which is like a little bit after Raid's been out for a while and stuff like that, and they add another 50 floors in, say, that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Formans have been out for a while already too. That's just like people's primary source of capping. Capping is going to be really important again in 3.4 too. So I would really love more Deep Dungeon content.
I haven't capped in weeks, man. In months,
yeah,
I think,
no one cares about capping anymore. And I know I'm very strange because I've capped every single day since 3.1. No, I guess I've capped it pretty much every single day since the expansion came out. But I'm a little bit strange like that. So.
Yeah.
But
Balana, do you feel like the same thing? Like it's just not gonna die out?
There's definitely gonna be a lot fewer people around Quarry Mill in a week.
Yeah.
You're not gonna be seeing party listing findings for it at all in a month. But I think people will still be queuing for it. I think people will still be soloing it. But for me, it's not gonna have a lot of staying power for me personally. I don't think. It's the hardest, the most challenging way to do it, which is solo, is also a bit tedious. Because you're looking at, to properly do the clear, you're spending the entire hour on each set of floors, which means you're looking at least a 5-hour clear.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming you don't wipe it all, assuming you don't die. And that's a bit of a time investment. You can cut it up into the 1-hour chunks, but it's just like, well, I could go start that solo run, but you see the road before you that's stretching
you're like,
off.
well, this is an hour, yeah.
Yeah, it's this is an hour, and then it's gonna be 4 hours. It's gonna be all this time. And
so it's just to see if people start doing speed clears of it and see how fast they can get through every single floor. Maybe that'll be the next thing. We'll see. Mm-hmm. I kind of see it coming. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do like this is another thing that if they keep following up on it, if they don't drop this like their other experiments, it should be, as you said, relatively easy for them to pump out like 50 floors every few months.
No.
And if they can just keep updating like that, it'll be a good draw, a good resource in the game, I think.
Yeah.
Yep. I think a good alternative to choosing how to cap and get materia and stuff like that. I like that. I mean, it seems like something just on the side of Weeping City. Like Weeping City's also kind of died down a little bit too, as well, right? Now we have Deep Dungeon.
Yep.
And I guess this is maybe their way of giving us another weapon too, outside of doing any raids.
Yeah. This is definitely the easiest weapon to get at 335 or 235, I think.
Yeah, it's just as long as you enjoy it. People should enjoy the content they do. Don't just look at the gear.
Yeah. All right. So, Buddy, what's his name, asked, what is everyone's experience with people kind of complaining about killing too many things? He's had someone in his party before that said he left because they were just killing everything.
I mean, you get that in dungeons as well. Like, you'll get those low-level dungeons where you can skip, like, half the mobs, and some people go and pull everything, and some people won't. It's a little bit more interesting in this because you don't have the designated puller like you would in a tank in a dungeon. So, theoretically, anybody could be the one to decide, hey, we're pulling everything today.
Right.
And so it's going to be a little bit more divisive on that, I think. And, I mean, that's people's... They're allowed to leave the dungeon if they don't want to fight everything, so...
Or you can kick someone if they're not really listening to the other three people too. Yeah, it comes up in formats too, right? You're right. It's definitely not a very smart way to do it in matchmaking. Like, you probably should be going for your clear as fast as possible in matchmaking, or just going for the chests. Clearing everything is very excessive because there's so many things that could go wrong, and you're like with members and stuff like that. That like you're holding members hostage for a very long period of time. If you're in a fixed party though, as long as everyone agrees with it, right? But
I guess I kind of phrased this wrong too. It's not the easiest way to get weapons, but it's the most accessible, lowest requirement to get weapons, because you can get the weapons being a level 17.
Least challenging.
Go in with a fixed party if they're planning to do stuff like that. Really. Yeah. Because you're not going to get, again, if you're matchmaking, there's going to be no alignment in what your goals are. Matchmaking is basically like, go get your clear. You can try and get people to do what you want, but if you don't have the full support of everyone, like, you gotta go in with a fixed party. And it's the same with like, 4-mans, right? It's like, oh, I want to go with this. But keeping
that fixed party together for 5 hours? That can turn into 5 hours at least.
5 hours. It should be 5 hours.
For a fixed party.
Time going through there, and they kind of don't know what they're doing, and they wipe a lot. Then
but we're talking about a farm party right now, right? They know what they want. They want the weapon. And keep in mind, a fixed party can be converted into a matchmaking party at any time. You don't have to lose progress as well. So if you can't find the same members again, just turn it into a matchmaking party. You can convert however many members you need to into matchmaking. So say one person's missing, you can convert that into 3 of the same people with one matchmaking player. So, but I guess that's hard for like the weapon farm that you guys are talking about. They are fixing that though. Clearing the dungeon will be the way to get upgrades. So hopefully they give enough. If the boss gives like +5 to each or something like that, people are just gonna go for the fastest clear. Even if it's +3, honestly, a guaranteed upgrade will be big.
All right. So this next question is from Boss Like Gavin again. Do you think that they will add Deep Dungeon to Duty Roulette and Challenge Log? Why again did they not have this in Duty Finder? They just maybe
because it's save game progress. I don't. Why would they?
It's because you have that save game progress where. If you have a fixed party, you carry over your pomades between each set of floors, where you don't get that with the random matchmaking. They probably don't have it in the Duty Finder just because of that system, because it's the same reason why they didn't have Coil in the Duty Finders originally, because you get basically locked out to a section of it. Like once you clear the first 10, you can't go back and do that unless you reset your progress, or you clear it and get back to there.
Right.
So
like it would be very strange in the Duty Finder because you have to use like save game to queue up for it. So like it would require some kind of new system in the Duty Finder that allowed that. I mean, I guess they could have somehow added to your menu system all that NPC's abilities, but
they'll probably do that eventually.
Maybe potentially, yeah. It definitely seems like that would be a lot more difficult to do.
Okay. So we got one more question. I'm going to hold off on it for just a second here, and I'm going to ask you guys, what else about Deep Dungeon do you feel like that we need to like just talk about real quick before we end the show today? Because we are kind of hitting the end here. Is there anything else that you feel like we missed that we definitely just have to hit on and make sure? Because we talked a little bit about what we think in the future, kind of in little side notes, and kind of what they'll probably be doing, adding new floors, and kind of little speculations there. Have we hit it all?
We had a pretty comprehensive review here.
Yeah, this has been a pretty good review of Deep Dungeon, I think, for one piece of content spending about 2 hours.
We didn't talk about the lore at all. I don't know if
I'm gonna lore. I mean, like, like every floor you saw a small cutscene of something like Ida, and then eventually you fight Ida, and it's like, oh, there's a little bit of story in there at the very end. That's all I saw. I didn't see.
You did the
much
final story. You finished the story quest line though, right? There's this quest right beside the vendor, and it finishes the Ida storyline.
Maybe I don't know.
It takes you like it's pretty long, so I don't know. It's like 30 minutes or so.
It's pretty cool though. It gives a nice little capper to the end of that story.
It was
that
nice
started
to
way
kind of
back
that
in
storyline.
Tamtara.
Yeah, but it made it to where she wasn't really evil, right? That she was being controlled by something. Am I right?
like
Spoilers,
Nastian.
Guys. Sorry.
Yeah, so Nastian.
That's what it seemed like.
Basically, what I'm trying to say is like make sure. So they separated the quest. So the quest is after you complete Deep Dungeon, there is a new quest that you can pick up right beside the NPC, and it will complete the Ida story. It gives some geez, what's the word I'm looking for?
Closure.
Closure. Thank you. I don't know why I was having trouble with that. Yeah, it gives some closure to that whole storyline, which is really nice. And I really like the Ida storyline. I've always kind of really liked it a lot. I'm wondering if they separated the quest in Deep Dungeons because maybe you had to finish Tamtara mode.
You do.
Yeah, to accept
finish
the quest.
hard mode.
To accept that quest, yes. But
And
Deep
you need to be
Dungeon
level
is-
50.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. That's why they separated the quest, so it didn't just happen right after
Right.
Deep Dungeon.
So you can
So,
still
yeah.
clear it as level 17, but
Yeah, you won't be able to finish the Edis quest line because you hadn't gone through it in order yet. So yeah, so I really suggest that people make sure to pick up that quest and just finish the story.
Maybe I need to finish it. Like I don't think I did anything after.
It's not something. It's not. I'm not trying to hype it up or anything. It's not super amazing. It's just if anyone has interest in the Ida quest line, like there's the closure to the quest line. Don't forget about it. There's a little bit of lore about the like how an Astian was involved with something that happened to her.
Of course, yeah, Astian's involved.
It's always
And
Astians. And
Give me someone
and
that's
also-
just evil, like just crazy Kefka evil. Just
And there's-
why can't I have that, man?
And there's always the speculation, like again, the speculation, like what is? They said the story ends after 100 floors, right? They said the story ends after 100 floors, and we've only done 50. So like, who's like, is it an Asian that's involved with the next 50 floors? Next 50 floors, are they going to be like? Are you going to level up again 1 to 50, and it's just a separate save file altogether?
the next 50 floors is going to be a real big pain in the Asian.
Yeah.
And then there's 100 floors after that, which are supposed to be the real challenge to Deep Dungeon. I don't know. I can't wait to see what that's about. That's 15 more bosses too that they're planning to add. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, we'll see how.
When it's complete, I'm really interested to see what's complete. I really love what we have right now.
You know what?
and-
We were really interested to see what was complete.
what?
The item.
Well, that's 3.4.
All right.
You should have me on that show, and then if I was totally wrong about Well, I haven't really said anything about Dido. I just said what it's going to be. I didn't say if I was going to like it or not. But yeah, you can have me on that show, and if it's like terrible, you could just be like, that's right.
I was
this item
hoping
was
for like
crap. It just-
airship battles, man. I wanted to get on
They
the
never said
airship and just like
airship.
fight other airships, or like get on the airship and fight bosses on the airship. I don't know. I wanted something like
I'm
that.
sure that's in some game, not this one.
Skies of Arcadia, there you go.
I wanted to see more airship activity instead of here. All right, you have an airship. It flew you there. I didn't get that whole little intermission there. I want to see being on an airship and walking around on an airship. I don't know. Anyways, done with that. We're not doing it anymore. We have one question here that I need to make sure to go ahead and ask and knock out, and that is Layla. A question for you, Frosty. Where does Balana rank in the beard of all time amongst MogTalk guests? Let me try to recall some of our previous guests here and their beards and ones that stood out. I'm going to say you kind of hold the record, I think, right now, Balana, with
Oh, really?
ridiculous kind of beard stuff. World Champ. You know who World Champ is, Balana?
Yeah. I've actually met Champ.
Yeah.
Last time I was in Vegas.
I met him at FanFest. Went to first FanFest, and so that was kind of exciting to see him again. But I saw his beard recently. I think he had a really ridiculous beard, if I remember right.
It wasn't as long as mine. I think I saw that episode. He was
Really?
growing it out a little bit, but
Okay.
I don't think he quite measured up in my book. But I'm not the one who's asked to judge here.
He was pretty good. He also had the hair that was pretty awesome too. So he's kind of up there. I'd have to think about that a little bit more to give you a complete, solid, real answer on it, though. All right, guys. I think that's pretty good for MogTalk today. We went over a lot of stuff with Deep Dungeon. Arkk was like, weeks ago, he was like, let's have an episode on Deep Dungeon. As soon as we talk about
so
this.
much stuff to it.
Yeah, I want to talk about it, and we're hoping we could actually make an episode out of Deep Dungeon at the time, because again, our expectations, right, are just like, maybe it will be something that we could do it. And I think that there was enough with Deep Dungeon that we could talk about. So
there's so much more I could talk about. I just don't want to bore people.
we did jump the rails for a little bit, but yeah.
The jump the rails on this new attraction here and came back on it. But I'm okay with that too. That's kind of what we do every once in a while. All right, so while we're ending up here, Balana, do you have any shout outs that you want to do? Your normal shout outs?
Shout outs to Gilgamesh's newest member, Shaman. Thanks for joining the team. Shout outs to everybody else on Gilgamesh, everyone in Elysium. You guys are awesome. And I'm going to see a bunch of you at FanFest. It'll be a good time.
I'm going to see you at TwitchCon.
Oh, I'm going to be at TwitchCon too, yeah.
Yeah, so I got to schedule a time that we're going to do an interview with you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Everyone that's like in the Final Fantasy 14 community at TwitchCon, I want to do some sort of interview with them and talk to them. So I'll be carrying around my little camera and setting up my little tripod, and Kerr will be there with me, and then we'll be doing little interviews with everybody. So
sounds like a plan.
Look forward to it, man. Arkk, shout outs for you, man.
Yeah, shout out to everyone from Lucidity, my free company on Gilgamesh. Great for supporting me and Izu as like we came over to the server and we're really new to it and everything. Some awesome people in there, and everyone in my static as well. And of course Frosty, as always, for having me on the show, so I can hear about how you don't like Deep Dungeon.
It's not that I don't like it. I just wish there was more. Like it's a solid 5, man. Solid 5 out of 10. I give it that. There's no less than that. But no, man, I am so excited to have both of you guys here. I'm going to go ahead and do a quick shout out in the Twitch chat here, showing where you guys can be found at, because you guys do stream. Yojo does stream as well. And then Yocho. And I said that when I was calling you Balana the whole show, and then like people will not understand who Yojo is just at that last point. But
it's like right Balana. At the bottom of my thing.
Yeah,
there.
It's on the you pointed right to it. That was perfect. Excellent. Sometimes when people are pointing to stuff, they're like way over on the other side, and they're all off and not in the right spot. But that's okay.
It's a good guess.
Yep. Thank you guys, everyone watching the show today. Thank you for all the people who came in and hosted the show. This has been actually a kind of interesting show to have about this new content, because it's something that was definitely on my mind, and I wanted to get that out of the way. And I'm going to be honest, it has brought me back into the game a little bit more active, to be a little bit more active doing this content, so it does have that appeal to it. Thank you very much to Kerr for collecting the questions throughout the show. Blizana for creating the artwork, the Moogle logo that you guys see on the screen, plus the layout that we have on here. Also, thank you very much to Andre Kane, who barely knows what the show is, and I found out created the intro music for us a while back. So he is an awesome guy. He didn't create it for us; it was just music he had, and we found out it was actually his music. He's an awesome guy.
You appropriated the show.
Exactly. He's really. I thought it was made by someone else, but then I found out that person wasn't telling the truth. It was made by this guy. And so I asked him, hey, man, is it cool that we use it? He's like, yeah, man, I don't care. It's fine. Use all my music. It's fine. So he's a really cool guy. Check him out. I think it's A. Kane Productions. He makes really cool covers for acoustic guitar covers for a lot of games, and Final Fantasy is definitely one of the major ones. Again, thank you all viewers. Next week, we are doing a kind of weird, different version of MogTalk. The plan is currently to do an Astrologian show. And I'm having some really cool Astros coming on the show to talk about it. And it's going to be an offline episode, meaning I'm working next weekend, and I want to still have a show. So I'm doing this experimental thing, because right now, 1 out of 5, 1 out of 4 weekends, I can't do the show. So it's either have someone else host a show, or do an offline air show, or do it on a different day, which I don't want to do it because that makes things inconsistent. So right now we're going to experiment with doing the show off air, collecting questions. If you guys have any questions at all about Astrologians, please submit that stuff to us, however fashion you want to do it, whether it's my email, frostyffxiv@gmail.com, or through Twitch. You can send me messages about that. I'm going to probably put a post on Reddit as well for anyone who has questions for Astrologians. And we'll collect all those. We're gonna record the show offline and then air it at the normal time next Saturday. And then I'll still be in chat. I just will be working at the same time, and I'm guessing the guest will probably be there to see the show air as well. So if you have any extra questions, you can ask that stuff in chat while we're doing that. And we'll see how that works out. If it fails horribly, then I probably won't do it again. But either way.
I look forward to see that show, though.
Yeah, no, I've
You got Astros already, right? Or?
Yeah, I got 2 Astros lined up. 2 awesome guys. One that's in the same company of Xeno. I can't. His name's really long. I'm horrible. I'm a horrible person. Hold on. Let me see. I'm gonna look it up because I feel bad now.
I just want to see some Astros who are like not gonna be like, oh yeah, I know I'm terrible and scholars are better. I don't want to hear that crap. I want to hear Astros who are like. Yeah. Totally like no, Astro is king, and like
I don't know if you're gonna hear Astro is king, but these guys do dedicate themselves to Astro.
That passion. Yeah. Okay, we'll see.
It's Shindekyo Hansha. I'm horrible at names, so there you go. That's slaughtered the first one, and the other one that we have planned to be on the show. Let me get that message up real quick. Is Trinif Rhymesoul, who I believe is on Gilgamesh with you guys. So. I'm going to have him on. We're going to talk about Astros and have a good time. If you guys want to find someone for us to host, I'll do the host here.
What are constraints?
Constraints are try Final Fantasy 14, I guess. Okay. If you have someone doing Deep Dungeon, that might be the preferred host, but it's not a complete requirement. So we'll see. Let me look up.
There's a lot of feasts going on now too, because those 2 things.
Well, the new season, yeah, people want to start out again with it.
I'm coming up wanting on people to meet these criteria, so I guess we're gonna throw this one to Arkk. You
okay,
take
Arkk.
The pick?
Man, I don't know if I see anyone familiar here. I would
There's
just
some
say
people here that I want to make fun of, but I'm not going to make fun of them.
Just the host of the first person you see with doing Deep Dungeon.
All right, so Deep Dungeon.